Alrighty, guys, we are here. We are back in the studio. We got ourselves, we got Rip, we got Ricky and Chris, and our special guest right here. We got
the better Chris,
the captain Chris, as we would know.
C.
Oh, Chris with a C.
Chris with a C, the way God intended.
I'm the weird Chris.
So yeah, you are the owner of Captain's Auction Warehouse.
Yes.
Which, funny enough, I've heard your business thrown around that name long before I met you. I've just kind of like heard it thrown around in the retro scene, you know, not knowing too much about it. So maybe tell the world what it is you do and what's your world.
Well, I guess, you know, I mean, the world, this is, how can you encompass the world that I come from in, I don't know, a couple of minutes? Do I have like 1 minute?
You got as much time as you
Yeah,
need.
you can do whatever you need to do.
See, it all started back when Chris was born with a C. And, you know, he was a hustler from the get. I'm just kidding. That's for him. But really, I mean, out of this troop here, like, I think I've known you, Chris, with a K for a few years, right?
Probably 7 or 8 years, because
Yeah.
I was bringing you machines when I moved out to California about 8 years ago, and I started bringing machines to your
I
auction.
think, we met because it impressed me. The first game he brought, I'm just going to go off top, whatever.
Do your thing, bro.
So when I met him, it was like first game came in. I think it was still dripping wet too.
I was.
He brought this like food fight. I think it was a food fight game or something. It was like,
I brought in a
here's
Mappy.
an amazing game. Maybe it was Mappy.
Mappy was
It started
pretty
with
bad.
Mappy because
love
Mappy was
Mappy.
really
Yeah.
Mappy was really bad, but you know, I mean, it was good because it's freshly painted, so it was like almost still dripping. It was like, here's a classic original Mappy. You can sell it. And we were talking and stuff, and I remember we were chopping it up, and I just liked the attitude, the name, and the personality. But I got to looking at the game later. I was kind of like, I think this is kind of waterlogged. You know?
Subpar work.
It was like, okay.
So
you
walk
know,
me through that. He brings in the arcade.
brings in the arcade.
When do you
sign it
sell
all
it
up
for him? How does that work?
Well, you know, he brings in the arcade, leaves it with me, get to know him a little bit, and then he takes off. And then I have my next auction, which it was probably like 2 weeks later.
How often are they? How often are they?
So the auctions that I operate, they're about every 6 weeks.
Okay.
5 to 6 weeks, 500 to 600 games, 300 pounds per game, 600 games, 18,000, 180,000 pounds worth of games that move in and move out over the course of a 5-week period. So we have this kind of rotisserie of games that come in, like Chris's game. They'll be coming in, getting ready for an auction, and we still have stuff going out from the previous. So about every 5 or 6 weeks, we can handle it.
And I'll just hop in on that. When I dropped off that game, and I'll talk about your operation for a minute. It is a massive operation. Like, how many square feet do you take now?
Total 2 buildings at about 48,000 square feet.
Wow.
Packed
Property in
full
Orange County.
of arcade and pinball machines. So when I drop off one lonely little game, it's like you have a sea of games. It's amazing that you run through those games every 5 weeks.
Every 5 weeks, we do. I mean, all the games that come in, unless there's a falling out, which there's very few fallouts, but they all sell. We sell them all. They move right on out. I got it's not just me. I got like 10 people that work for me there. So handling paperwork, and then all your move outs is, 300-pound games. And, we get games, half the games I would say are like your FEC style. Like you go to Dave & Buster's, any of those places. I mean, these things are like structures. You got this room. I got games that are almost the size of this room that they put together just for the auction. And then they got to take them apart to get them ready to ship out.
The Tomb Raider that you had when I picked up a PlayStation 1 kiosk that I bought at auction.
Oh, that's where you got it from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from Captain's Auction. Because there was a few kiosks that ran, but the Tomb Raider that you had in there, the thing is about 20 feet long.
Well, if you put 2 of them together, yes. But I mean, on the realistic, they are 118-inch monitor screen.
Okay.
So 118, almost probably as wide as in here.
So that's 10 feet. Yeah,
and
about this
then
big.
it's gonna
15
be-
feet, maybe?
How much do those? Because I see there's like
10
the
feet
Halo
tall.
ones, the Walking Dead crossbow ones. I mean, what do these things weigh?
Well, they're about 1,200 pounds. We just sold a Halo 4-player, which you'd see in any of those
That's a great
big
game.
FECs. A great game.
It is a good
but
game.
it's like dual 60-inch monitors with a centerpiece, and then you've got 2 double fixed gun shooter areas, like 2 pits with 4 seats. So when you set this structure up, it comes apart in like 24 pieces. But altogether, it's probably, I'm going to say 1,900, 2,000 pounds.
Jeez.
When you have all that iron, all the metal, all the plastic, wood all together. And then we set all that up, right? And then we take it down after the sale.
Wow.
And we'll usually help whoever it is that bought it put it on their truck. So
How long have you been doing this?
since 1999. So if you do the math backwards, whatever that is, what year is it now? 2029. So
years.
25 years.
Dang,
25
I
years.
couldn't do that.
That was pretty easy math, but none of us could do it. I just see everybody like slowly.
I was
looking
going
around,
backwards.
like-
I was thinking, well, it's 2029, and I was going to minus some years off there. So yeah.
What
5
got
years,
you into
25.
like this whole giant? Because
Well,
that's a big operation.
Yeah, like what led up to it, like you being into the auctions?
Well, okay, so I'll go back. Start with my fascination for games, right? So in 1977, before anybody here was even, right?
Ben's close.
Yeah, Ben's the
Okay.
1950s.
So cool. So, I come up in the arcades and there was a skate park.
Sick.
And I started playing all those old classic games from 77, 78. They were rolling out brand new. I was 12. And so, arcade games and pinball machines were kind of like in my purview, give or take since 77. Obviously, I couldn't do business then, but I was an entrepreneur in other areas, which kind of gave me the savvy to see when there was an opportunity to start selling games. I got into it like realistically in, I'm going to say 94, 95. I had some opportunity to go and buy some games. It was through like an auction, right? I was working with my pops. I'll call him my pops. He's kind of like my surrogate dad, whatever. And we have this kind of like community center, and there was a little babysitting room. And he told me, because I'm a hustler, he told me, hey, I saw this sign down the road that said arcade auction. Why don't you go there and see if you can get some games for the kids? And I was like, all right, I'll do that. And so I went to this auction, and immediately I start angling around, and I bought some games, and I met the owner of the auction, started talking to him, and got these games, put them in for the kids. And then it was like, worked so well. It's like, I'll go back next month and buy some more games. And, within 2 months, I was already friends with everybody who worked at the auction, the front office, them people. I got to know the owner. I wanted to get into a part of the business that was budding, because between 94 and 96, if you remember, 1996, I believe, eBay was probably a year old, maybe?
I think that's right.
And people were already selling video games on eBay, right? And I saw these people at the auction. They'd buy and they'd sell and they'd take them to eBay. And then I'd ask them about, what do you do to move that stuff cross country? And think this is like the 90s, right? And they would take their games, these full-size games, and they would put them in their truck, take them to LA or Hawthorne to Forward Air Station, right? They'd get them weighed,
Wow.
measured, then they'd build a crate, right?
Ship them out.
Take them back to Forward Air. I mean, it was this whole like process they were doing. And at the time when I'm doing this hustle for the kids' room and all that stuff, I worked at a warehouse. I managed warehouses and did things. It was another life. And what I did do, though, was I had the ins on shipping industry. So what I did was I started offering a shipping service to these guys that are selling on eBay. I go to the auction, and I made my own packet and everything. And I had a buddy who said, you should have a name for like your business, right? So I'm like starting this thing without even really knowing it. And so he goes, well, you're going to be a shipper, so maybe you're a captain.
There it is.
And
I
I'm
was
like,
gonna ask you that, how that
and
came
he's
about.
all, and he immediately went, Captain Chris.
Ha!
And I was like, yeah, all right,
It's a cool name too.
let's do it.
It is a really good
and
name.
And I started blowing that business up.
So
I mean,
do you only deal in like that field for games, or do you do all types of shipping and all that stuff and auctioning?
well, I do all types of shipping now, because I've got a couple of businesses, some warehousing, that's boring stuff, but I've got companies that they leave their product in my warehouse, and then I've got employees that actually ship. So I do different shipping for other people. It's like a third-party logistics deal.
You know what?
No, I'm just
Hey,
kidding.
what
Don't
a,
put
no, no.
Illegal drug smuggling.
I'm not going to be able to edit that out, Chris.
with the games though, it was like I got to know some people, and it really, in shipping the games for people, I was working at this place, and I'd take all their games, so I was getting more familiar with a lot of the stuff that was coming out and everything, because I'd kind of dropped out of the game scene a little bit. I was managing warehouses, and I was working for this shoe company, an athletic shoe company. Anyways, so in that, I started getting familiar with the games, and then I started seeing some opportunities for me to sell games. And so I was selling on eBay, and running my Captain Chris shipping, and I was just hustling my way through.
Yep.
And, all that time, I get up to like 1999, that auction house, there was this guy, an infamous guy who ran an auction company that I was working for. And I told him, I said, you go out on the road all the time. You have this open building here. I said, what you're going to do is you're going to give me this building to run all month long. And then you do your auction. I'll help you set it up and everything. So I basically told this guy, this is what I'm going to do with your building. And he bought it. He bought into it. He's like, all right, cool. And so I started selling on eBay, and I was making inroads with different operators and people in the coin op community, because not just collectors, but I've been a big advocate in the coin op community, like people who are operating games all over the place. And I made friends with a guy who was operating in movie theaters and had pinball machines. And at the time, I sold a Medieval Madness pinball machine, which was the top of... It broke the records on eBay for pinball machines.
Still kind of is,
Do you
isn't it?
remember the number?
Well, the number at the time, 1999, I believe it was $6,500 for Medieval Madness. And pinballs back then were like, the premium ones you find now, they were like $1,500, $1,800. Like even new from distributors when they came out.
Yeah.
In the 90s, $1,800 was your equivalent to what? $6,500 now. Like $1,800 was a lot of money back then. And so to sell a medieval for $6,500, I put up like 36 pictures. I did all this stuff that was just kind of different in that community. And, in selling some of those games, my eBay name was Captain's Auction Warehouse. That was my store that I created on eBay. And I just kept that with me. So basically 1999, Captain's Auction Warehouse was born. Captain Chris was born a lot earlier than that. And then everything just kind of morphed from there.
Wow.
There's a big spot between 99, 2000 to, let's say, 2008. There was I did a lot of world traveling and game buying and procuring and all this stuff that...
What's the most expensive thing ever sold at Captain's Auction? Ooh. In your recollection.
In my recollection, the most expensive item I sold was the Sega, the R360, which is the Sega G-Lock.
I was there for that auction.
Yeah.
What did it sell for?
That was
20,000? 15?
65,000. 65,000.
Oh wow, I'm way off. Maybe I didn't realize it went for that much. That was like the rotating. It's like a gyroscope
it almost looks like a
thing.
time machine.
Yeah,
I
I
look at it
was
like
at
a
that
time
auction
machine.
in person.
Which one?
The one when you sold the G-Lock thing. I was there. Unless it was an older one. You had one that was there. Maybe it wasn't a working
Well,
one.
at the museum, we had one. It was 65,000. And I still have that machine.
I was at one auction where there was like a gyroscoping Sega machine. It's got to be that G-Lock.
May have been.
Maybe it was like 3 years ago.
The only one I sold was 2021.
Oh yeah, so 3 years ago.
So that
That's
was
the
at
one.
the Banning Museum. And there's a few. There's like your sit down.
That's not it, Curtis. No.
Yeah, it would be the R360.
It's like a round.
So if you say
R?
It looks-
R360,
Are you able to show that, Ben? Oh, he is. Good job, Bento.
Yeah, it looks like it does
There
look
it
like a
is.
time machine.
That's an
I've
R360.
seen that. Wait, I think Retro Ralph did a video.
He probably did. There's one at Galloping Ghost.
You know Retro Ralph?
I do.
Okay, he's a good
Yeah, I
buddy of
know
mine,
Ralph.
too.
Yeah, Ralph's a great guy.
He is.
He's insane with a pinball bug now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had him on
He's-
FaceTime the other day. I went in the backyard for my day job,
Sorry,
which I won't name. And this guy said, hey, he had some arcades in the backyard. And I was like, do these work? He's like, I don't know. They've been out here for a year. And I was like, I'll take them. So I went and took them. And one of them worked, the Marvel vs. Capcom, and just plugged right on and worked.
Oh,
And-
yeah, cool.
And the other one, Ben helped me just take out all the boards to sell them. So all the
I have one of my guys that does that too. He gets called around and
Yeah.
picks games up out of yards and
Yeah.
stuff. He's like, boom, he's on it.
When you
Sweet.
mentioned that you bought an arcade cab, my question was, like, when you were younger, do you remember what the first arcade cab was that you purchased to like sell?
Yes, it was a Pac-Man actually. The first two games I remember, it was a yellow Pac-Man, the original, and it was nice too. I mean, it was obviously in used condition. It had a little bit of hand wear because everybody, well, right-handed was like, you know, you play with your left or whatever. I sold that on eBay. That was my first game that I purchased. Second game was Blasteroids.
Yeah.
Blasteroids.
Blasteroids was the follow-up to Asteroids. It's a
Yeah.
color CRT monitor.
I'm going to look it up.
Is that the
Very
button
cool
one?
game. It's got buttons and it's got a dial. It's
Okay.
got a Tempest dial on it, like the game Tempest.
Yeah.
Similar dial to that. Not very popular for some reason, but I actually like the game.
I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't like it. I don't like
Well,
it.
you know, I mean, it was, it was not the popular one.
Okay,
I mean, it went Asteroids because it got away from the vector monitor.
I like asteroids. I don't like blasteroids.
Yeah, the graphics look weird on it. They don't look like.
Well, they
Asteroids is
are
a true
weird,
vector
and
game.
I mean, most people say it was a fail. You
Hey,
know,
what's the
the
Holy
cabinet. The
Grail?
cabinet's kind of like wonky. and
What I
everything,
want to
but-
know is what's the Holy Grail? What's
Of-
the big value of like
arcades
arcade?
or
Where you
pinballs?
see it, you're just going to automatically.
Well,
create
you know,
your
I
pants.
think the Holy Grail is subjective. Like, I mean, it's,
Okay,
it
money
is.
wise. Money wise.
Well, I
If you
mean,
see it,
a
you know you're
Holy
buying a new
Grail
car.
would be the game you always wanted for the least amount of money.
I'll tell you my
right?
holy grail of arcade machines: Super Spy Hunter.
What's that worth?
Maybe $2,000 now.
I don't wanna hear it.
2,500.
I'm talking.
What?
We just said
How
that
much
one
for
just sold for
Spy Hunter?
$60K. What are we talking about
Spy
2
Hunter?
grand for?
Yeah, the stand-up
Brokey.
Spy Hunter arcade
I think a
machine.
pinball machine sells for
500
that. Why
Valley,
not?
right?
Yeah, the stand-up
We
one.
just sold one.
Not a pinball machine.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
The upright. We
Yeah.
just sold one at auction 2 months ago.
Don't tell me it's cheap now.
No, it was like 6,000.
$6,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
I was
They
saying-
were like $2,000.
I was saying you walk into a backyard in the middle of Iowa and they say you can have all these arcade machines. They're $50 a pop.
And I see the
What's-
one in the back
What's
over
the
there.
one that you're like, oh, that's going to buy me a new car?
Probably an Atari Color Vector, and I would say it'd be like an iRobot or Major Havoc.
I've
Are
never
they
heard
worth
of those.
big money?
They're worth pretty big money.
I've never
That's-
heard of
Are
those.
those like
I don't know what that
70s
is.
machines or 80s?
No,
What
they'd
is
be
it?
like 80, 82, 83. Now, Star Wars, remember Star Wars arcade, right? And then there was the
Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi.
I have one of those.
So that Return of the Jedi cabinet is what your iRobot or your Major Havoc are in. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a pedestal monitor
Yeah.
style.
Is it the
But
sit-down
then-
one?
No, it's an upright.
Okay.
And it'll have like a drum trackball, almost like a trackball, but it's shaped like a drum, and that's on your Major Havoc. Yeah, it's
What's the value?
well, once again, subjective. Probably I've heard, I haven't sold, $15,000 to $20,000.
Okay.
See, my Super Spy Hunters, it's a pretty rare machine. To find.
you-
What do Paperboys
Well,
go
what
for
is
now?
Super Spy Hunter?
Maybe it's not Super Spy Hunter, just Spy
Spy
Hunter.
Hunter.
I'm thinking Super Spy Hunter, the NES game, just Spy
Get your
Hunter.
stuff together, dude.
I don't even know what my grail is. What is Paperboy go for now? That's an
Last
expensive
one I
one.
had, that was another probably 6,000.
6. Okay.
Really?
About 6,000.
Yeah.
keep thinking
Paperboy
it's
had
more.
the handlebars
Well,
on
you
it.
know, I'm conservative, but the numbers that I bring, it's kind of like real time. I mean,
Yeah.
in auction, in all fairness, you can get good deals, and 6,000 is actually going to be your 7,000, 7,500 by the time you're out the door, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you guys all complain about it.
Oh, for sure.
Because I'm here. You know?
I bought a game. I bought a game off Chris on an auction site not too long ago, and they were like, "Oh, you got to pay this shipping fee and this
Yeah, you gotta
buyer
pay
fee." And I was like,
shipping,
"Stupid Chris."
buyer's premium, all that stuff. But you know, I mean, those are actually really like good numbers.
Yeah.
You know, we did the museum auction where there's like a paperboy that was. It had signatures from the entire design team. It had a gold placard on it. And of course that sold for like 12, 15,000 somewhere in there. If I'm right. Paperboy is another popular one. I'll tell you the one that everybody really wants and you just can't find because you can't, I guess they can't really rebuild it is 720.
I love 720.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a skateboarder.
Skate or die. Yeah.
I'm a skateboarder, so that's my.
Yeah.
Is 720 the sequel to Skate or Die? Is it related at all to it? It's not.
Because
No,
there is
there's
a
a Skate or Die
Because there
too.
is a Skate or Die too.
So 720 is a
Skate or
totally
Die
different.
2. Who makes
It was
that?
an NES game.
It's an NES
yeah.
game.
It's
No, I'm
NES.
talking Atari 720.
Yeah,
Full
720.
size, 25-inch medium res monitor. And it's got that inverted joystick on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to play.
Very hard
Is
to
that
play.
a $10,000 machine? Would you
I
say?
would say minimum.
Minimum 10.
It's
In
on
fact,
NES
if
too.
I had one, I probably wouldn't sell it for 10.
You don't see them that often
You
at
don't
all.
see them that often at all. Some people like the race games, Champion Sprint, Super
F-Zero?
Sprint. Those are cool and everything. Off road. Ivan
yeah,
Stewart
the
off
four-player?
road. Three-player game.
3-player.
Great game. Love that one. That was one that actually I
So
brought
good.
I brought that game into
good.
that kids babysitting room.
Yeah.
And some of the moms complained. They were like, well, they told my pops, who told me, he's like, oh, you're going to have to get that off-road out. I'm like, why? Well, Alan's in there, and he just plays, and he gets the nitro, and he keeps winning, and all he does is want to look at the bikini girls. And the moms are all offended by it.
I still remember the cutscenes from Cruising USA and the
Yep.
Big Buck Hunter game.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be like, oh, as a kid, like looking over, like, because it was like, FMV type graphics.
I think that's great, too. I'm
is
like,
awesome.
I was like, oh, okay, I'll remove the game. But yeah, I've always enjoyed, that's the payoff at the end, right?
100%.
But
it's your reward. Surprise.
It's your reward. Get it out.
Yep.
We get it out. Put some new games in. So there's always the little controversy.
Both of them are gonna. I want to ask a question. Who's it gonna be?
Would you say you're the largest arcade and pinball auction house in the country? And then second, would you say, if that's a yes, are you the largest in the world?
As far as I would know, as far as arcade and pinball auction house, I would probably say in the world.
In the world.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
we just got our title.
And that's
Perfect.
well, people are like, oh, that's, but how can you say not? I mean, I don't know of any other place on the planet that's going to regularly have 600 to 700 arcade and pinball machines that are truly selling in an auction anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Me neither.
I've been to auctions.
Couldn't think of it.
There's auctions on the East Coast, auction game sales. Some of these other places.
Smaller, though.
They'll do, well, in the heyday, they would do on-site auctions with no internet, and you had to be there. And I've been to auctions where they've had 1,000+ games, and they sell them all in one day, but they'll have 2 or 3 pits going at the same time. They're walking down the lines. This guy's over here selling all these 19-inch. This guy's over here selling pinballs. So there's all this stuff going on. And I've gone there and watched it. But that's a totally different animal that happens every a few weeks. So, safe to say, and I don't say it with any kind of bragging rights. I'm not the world's greatest.
It's all right. The title will say it. Don't worry.
But
I do like the fact that, I do believe that we are probably the largest in the world. And I mean, that's actually kind of cool.
I mean, that's an accomplishment for sure. I mean,
I know in the country we are, and I have a lot of guys that actually will buy games in bulk, and then they run smaller regional auctions where they're at, whether it's online, and people call me, oh, there's this new guy has popped up doing these auctions. I'll look him up and be like, I know him. It's like, I recognize those games.
how hard is it for you to not get those games and keep them when they come into your auction house?
As a collector?
As a collector.
As a collector, because I am a collector, but I try not to be to a fault. Like, I really enjoy them, And I think I try to get everything I can out of it personally for enjoyment until they go.
Yep.
And then I'm okay with it, right? I have a harder time with pinballs than I do with arcade games.
Yeah.
Letting go of them.
Yeah, letting go of them. Because I do like to collect.
Yep.
And I'm responsible enough and I know enough that, I can't keep them all. I can't hold them all. I went
the
through a
hard part about
period
this
with the
business.
pinballs. Yeah, it is. It is a very difficult and at the same time a great part of the business is, I got such a love for something.
Yeah.
And, I can be the guy, step up and let them go.
Yeah, even selling it has.
But, it's easier when I look at the light of, for the most part, everything that comes through my hands that I do let go is actually going to a good home that's going to use it.
Yeah.
And they've only got like a couple of games or a few games, or they have their own collection and they have their own sickness. They have their own whatever's going on. And I just know it's going to a good place. So I'm cool with it.
Yep.
If it was mine and I knew it was going off to the Never Land to be stripped down for parts or melted down for something, I probably wouldn't dig it as much.
Have you kept anything? Sorry, Chris, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you done it 7 times to me. No.
Ricky was going to ask a question earlier. You guys interrupted. I was like,
Okay, bro. Wait, Ricky was gonna talk?
Yeah,
I was going to talk.
Do you have it still?
Yeah, I could actually ask him.
Let's go.
No, because he
He doesn't
kept
ask
saying
questions very often.
Okay.
he kept
that's
saying he
cool.
ships and everything. What's the farthest you shipped? Like, do you ship across the sea? Do you what's the farthest?
I've shipped across the ocean. Yeah.
And
actually, you go ahead and finish.
And
I want
what's
you to
the
finish.
price on something like that? Because I would think it's to be like an Arabian prince or something. Like, yeah, I want that one.
There's a lot.
The Emirates order.
2K shipping. I'm like, oh,
Well, I'll tell you, I've actually arranged and shipped games to Saudi Arabia.
I was right.
I've shipped games back to Japan. Australia is another one.
Pretty far.
So the Australians and the Kiwis, which is New Zealand,
Yeah.
I tell them, yeah. It's they
never heard of
have to
that.
do their own thing. Those two, they got to do their own thing because of their import. They have some import laws that have to do with pesticides and wood and all that. So I just say, you guys handle it. They have their own collection points, and besides, the Australians, they're more, how you say, conservative in their prices they want to pay for shipping. So
Cheap.
cheap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can say it.
Cheap bastard.
They're cheap, but them guys always got something hustling because the continent of Australia, right? They buy a lot of arcades and pinballs. They also buy cars and all kinds of stuff because, the population around that continent's huge, but everything's imported to Australia. I mean, they don't have a lot of production of much of anything that I know of except for Ugg boots.
And they probably didn't have
I think that's all they make. I don't,
they probably didn't have arcade and pinball machines in the 80s is my guess, right? There probably were none there.
Very few. In fact, it's funny you said Australia, and I'll get back to finishing with your question too. Australia, I just dealt with some Aussies. I was at Pinball Expo in Chicago, and I held an auction there for the guy who runs Expo. I don't normally do a lot of like off-site auctions. There's just too much. There's logistics, and then you've got the internet, and I've got my customers in this whole like, you got to get it out of here.
Yeah.
And everybody on the internet's like, I don't know where they're at. How are they going to get? Anyways, so there's an Australian pinball company. They made the first licensed Star Wars pinball machine, Empire Strikes Back. And for the life of me, maybe it's selective. I can't even remember that company's name right now. But if you Googled it, you can look him up. The Empire Strikes Back pinball, and his name starts with an H. And I got to know the name because I want to say this.
Pinball? It's pinball, you said?
It is pinball. Hankin. Yes, Hankin.
I've never heard of that.
Hankin Pinball. I sold one of those, the Empire Strikes Back.
Dang, it looks awesome.
That does look amazing.
Look at the cover art on it with the
And-
black.
Absolutely.
swirl.
And it was like, it's black. It has the infinity glass.
Dang, with Darth Vader on it.
So check this out.
Whoa.
That infinity glass is kind of like Space Invaders pinball, where infinity glass, you see the vision all the way back, right? That's the way the lighting is. so it kind of looks like a runway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, that does
But it's Darth Vader with flames behind him.
That's a good
I mean, it's really
That
cool.
thing is
and there
incredible.
is a picture that's Mark Hamill that proves that was a licensed game. And apparently, George Lucas gave Hankin permission. He said, okay, you can use the license to do this, but I want a pinball. That's all I want out of it.
No way.
So he gave him a pinball out of that deal. The pinball actually plays cool. It's kind of like Space Invaders meets Star Wars. It actually says Empire Strikes Back on the playfield also, which is really cool. So Hank and Company was there at Expo, and they brought like 4 or 5 pinballs there. They had some in the free play room, but then they wanted a deal to bring one in and put it in the auction, which they did. They made a deal. I sold the game. I really honked it up. I actually brought the buyers that were there online, honked up the game, bang, bang, bang. And
That's what I like to hear. Honk it up. Dude.
I did. And I did a fantastic job. We barked it up, got them top. I think it brought, I'm going to say they netted out, it's like just under $12,000 for that pinball, right? So he made a deal with the Expo guys. They could bring the pin in, and he wasn't going to pay any commission, right? So I was just selling it.
Yeah.
They didn't even tip me,
Oh.
right? Not even like a gratitude. Like, here you go. I didn't need it, but just thanks, you did a good job. Oh, okay. And I brought him actually, it netted like 2,000 over what he was asking for. Like he wanted to get I need to get this. So we did it, and I pushed more and got more and all that. And it wasn't really to get anything from him, but I was actually just kind of surprised that, there was just nothing. Because I pay my staff who's there with me too. And some of the tips or deals or whatever. But I was like, you Australian.
Dang, Aussies.
Aussies.
Forever cheap in his brain.
I have a question, but it could be the next topic if you want, because I have another question that's pretty. I didn't see it up there, so I think it's interesting.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I didn't finish answering your question here. So
Sorry, Chris will interrupt it. Don't worry. Don't worry.
So the most somebody probably paid for shipping
Ooh, I like it.
was about $7,000.
Oh, geez.
Okay, $7,000.
On an arcade, they won for 1,000.
$7,000. No, it was multiple games, right?
Oh, got it.
So
Makes sense.
there's multiple games, but there's this thing that sucks with it. $7,000 paid for this. It was a 20-foot container, right? $7,000. Won't say the country, but it went there, and it was actually confiscated and held for ransom.
Mexico.
And, no,
Okay.
it wasn't.
Somalia.
Shipping container, it's definitely
But
overseas.
it cost him like an extra $12,000 just to get it out of
That
He had
holding.
to pay the ransom.
he had to pay the ransom.
I bet you that guy's like,
We have your machines.
he saws it on the side. He's like, I am the
like-
captain now.
And it was like it had nothing to do with me. It was like that country and everything. And I was
New
like,
Zealand
and I was just like, oh man,
He didn't hear it.
I'm so sorry, dude. There's nothing I can do. He was just calling to complain to me so he didn't end up in prison or something.
Yeah.
He's in a different country. And it reminds me some of these people, they buy stuff and you've got just all these different, formats around the world. Like people treat either coin op or things that may generate capital.
Yeah.
In some countries, no one's supposed to generate capital except them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Curtis
So
had the
anyways, that
perfect-
answers your question about that.
Yeah.
It's like $7,000 for that.
Jeez.
You could deliver it.
Curtis had the perfect line. He said, I am the captain now.
Holding your
the
stuff for
arcade.
ransom.
That's why I thought you said Somalia because of Somali pirates.
That was the Tom Hanks movie.
yes.
Where he goes, I'm the captain now.
Yeah.
I have the arcade machine.
All right. What were you going to say?
I was going to ask you. I didn't see it up there, so I don't think it was something we brought up. Arcade oneup and all the newer, cheaper arcades. I want your opinion from what do you think of them, first of all? And then I also want to know, did it play into any downward spiral for you guys for a while where people like, hey, yeah, Arcade 1UP's the next big thing. Did your guys' sales go down? I want the whole...
I'll just say we did have it as a topic, which is basically like you could maybe roll into this, Chris. Like, what is the future of what is like the future of the arcade machines in pinball?
I worded it better.
Current status of Arcade 1UP?
Include arcade.
Well,
ones in
okay,
that, but
first
like,
of all, what do you think about
we let Chris produce this one.
Like, opinions. So
I want opinion.
My opinion.
Arcade 1UP.
Arcade 1UP, a money grab for somebody who had a good idea for them, I guess. I mean, to me, some of the most cardboard made pieces that it's kind of ridiculous.
So you think they're junk?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, I'm pretty much of that. It's hard to, I'll say yes for me because you asked my opinion.
Yep.
It's my personal opinion. I'm not hurting for space wise, like if I want to have an arcade game. And so it's hard to say, it's totally crap because some people, that's the size space. So somebody filled a niche. So now I have to really like the guy who created a niche. He said, there's people that need this small footprint. So hats off to him for making the Arcade 1UP and bringing it to market. It's tough to do. And I know from other experiences I've had in different parts of the coin op industry, I know the chances you have to take and what you got to roll out for Arcade 1UP when they first came out, what you have to put up to make that successful, because there were a lot of them that came out.
Yeah,
Arcade 1UP created like this whole rollout. And where did they roll them out at? What stores? Big box stores? Walmart. To get into Walmart, to do anything like that.
That's true.
Well, okay, it's hard. Walmart, traditionally and historically, is set up and designed they'll bankrupt the small guy. Small guy with product. You just think about it. Walmart says, okay, we want 10,000 of these or 20,000 of these, right? Boom, we take them out. But Walmart has this whole really strict return program too. But say they want 20,000 of them on your dime, your capital, and they'll take 6 months, 9 months to pay this back. Oof. All the while, you may be getting hundreds of returns. I mean, it's a real commitment. So I hand it to them for working out deals where obviously Arcade 1UP's still in business, right?
Yes,
they just came up with more of them.
They are in a weird spot right now where like they're making the latest thing they came out with is like a photo, like a self photo thing that would, like the photo booths, like a full size photo, but it's like a little thing that goes on a countertop.
So
and
they somewhat pivot, right?
They pivoted, and people are complaining about it. They have a claw machine that came out.
Claw machine.
I don't know if it's a licensing thing. Like they kept redoing the Mortal Kombats over and over and over
part of
again.
It's a license, but at the same time, I mean, they must be making money. It's like a whole numbers game for them, and that's why I mean, the stuff is cheap. It is by far barely home version quality.
They must have found somebody within the industry to be able to like pretty much upfront that money and find a manufacturer and a distributor to create good margins. You
get investment capital from one of those BlackRock or whoever. I mean, you get some.
But I mean, if you're making it like IKEA quality, that's kind of what's going to come out.
If you're making IKEA quality, then you're probably backed by some Swiss IKEA guy that just knows the whole thing about folding a game up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you that I thought it was. I tip my hat to the guy that created it as well. But I like original cabinets.
Oh, 100%.
100%.
And I really don't. I'd be surprised if the owners of Arcade 1UP were actually like started as collectors or really liked arcade games. I think it's a money thing.
You know what I want to do? I want to cut to I really like the old ones and just have Chris kicking the arcade machine.
I mean, I do own some Arcade 1UPs.
Oh yeah, you have a
some
bunch
in my store because they are convenient for space.
Yeah.
But I think one reason why they might like they're creating different things and pivoting now is I wonder. I really tip my hat. Like, and maybe you could comment on it, Chris. Like what the licensing process must have been to contact Konami, Midway, like Bally's, whoever they got the rights to make those games must have been a whole process. That's where the money is.
Well, NBA Jam was Midway, but most all those licenses are under like an umbrella, one umbrella.
Like a parent company?
Yeah, there's a parent company that owns a lot of those. So I think to get everything that you see on like Arcade 1UP, because, and I think that a lot of it's Namco. Like
maybe
company Namco is like,
they're big.
Oh, yeah, they're like Acme. Like, Acme's on Bugs Bunny and all that.
Yeah, they own
like
everything.
Acme company is, Namco Bandai owns so much
Bandai too
of that market.
Yeah.
Well, now I had to ask the other part of that question was, did it at first? Because I know there was hype for it in the beginning. Did it affect your business at all in any way?
Not at all.
Okay.
Just because of the fact that the customer base has always been fans of like commercial grade, collector quality,
Heavy duty.
Yeah, I mean, just the traditional arcade stuff. So everybody kind of has that same mentality of Arcade 1UP. And if you want one, you can always just go buy one at the store.
Did you ever buy one?
No.
Would you sell one at auction if somebody tried
I
to bring?
have sold it.
I was gonna ask you. What did you think when they brought it in? You're like,
of course, the personality aside, I'm like, oh, really? Some of them, I look at them all, really?
But I mean, there are some of them that are worth money because of their like a limited run.
Right.
The Supreme Mortal Kombat one is worth some money.
Supreme,
the brand, yeah. I think that one's like $2,000. That's the most expensive.
Oh, it's like a Spy Hunter?
But that's Supreme, right? Like a Super Spy Hunter?
So what did they bring? Which cab did they bring in? Just like a generic Pac-Man or something?
The one that's got like, there'd be like 10 games on it. I think I had a countertop one last month. And yeah, the guy came in to get it. And I think I sold it. It was like $50.
Wow.
And it was a countertop one, about, I don't know, 24 inches tall. And it's just, regular joystick. And then it had choice of games. It was kind of like the, like Pixel Bash almost. It had like 10 or 12 games on it. It was Arcade 1UP. And it had that cheap, you got the power box in the back.
Oh, the cheap little
the 5 amp, 0.07 millis or whatever. And somehow the guy came in to pick it up. And the cord was gone. And they have those cheap, almost like any one of these cords could
any generic
plug in,
cord
right?
from a light.
It's like a DC 12 volt or something like that.
Yeah, the thing is, if you grab the wrong one just because that little pin fits, I mean, you could blow it up. I'm like, but it seems like the biggest challenges I have comes with games like that, an Arcade 1UP. And it's like, because I do not like giving people their money back.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, it didn't work out. It
probably
didn't
easy
sell
to ship
or whatever. Yeah, it's easy to ship.
One guy.
But he's right there to pick it up. And it's just like, he just stood there on top of us until we found a cord. And I found a cord. I think I decommissioned a camera or something in my office. I'm like,
yeah, we powered up the Marvel vs. Capcom cabinet here with an e-bike charger.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
I was like, well, and it worked.
There we go.
If you fast forwarded 20 years from now, do you think there would ever be value in those Arcade 1UPs, or will they be collector's items in the future, possibly, if Arcade 1UP went under?
If they go under, and if 90% of the people either destroyed them, threw them away, or they are kind of like built like, if your kids are rough with them or whatever, they're not going to last. I mean, they just delaminate and fall apart.
They do.
And, they only weigh a couple pounds. So if you get upset and you lose, I mean, you could literally throw it through the window.
Yeah, you can't kick them like you would a regular. It'll flip.
I mean, they're made out of particles.
No, but you could stomp it into the ground. I mean, you can. I could kick one apart.
I will say, from moving, like running the expos, we run Retro World, and we move our 60 machines, and you've moved 1 million arcade machines. When I comes to I see an Arcade 1UP, and I go, oh my god, it's like a blessing to just pick it out, 2 hands, and just move it. It weighs only about 15 pounds.
They are
it's as light as can be.
Super lightweight.
Do you think that Arcade 1UP will go under?
If they keep evolving and coming up with some gimmick, eventually, I don't know.
I do.
You think they will go under?
I do.
Well, I think as a whole with the miniature games and everything, I think that kind of will lose its way. Store, everything's kind of a fad.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to stuff that's like mass produced, bought at Walmart, whatever, I mean, the collector value, maybe not in our life.
Yeah.
Maybe your kids or something when you're 80 and you go, oh, yeah.
I played that at my
arcade
friend's house.
You've been running having a auction house since 1999. What do you see like the future now that you've been like in the arcade industry? What do you see the future of arcade machines and pinballs as it goes forward?
I don't. I see the fact in collecting. I mean, obviously, it's interesting to think like what the next generation's going to come up like. I mean, I'm used to a lot of collectors being, let's say, around my age. I mean, you guys are all, in your 20s and stuff.
Thank you.
I know.
But I'll keep it.
I'm in my 40s and I'm a collector.
I guess what I'm, no, I know there's plenty of collectors, but then I think down the road, it's like, if that, what's that generation called now? Like
The newest generation?
XYZ.
I think they're Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
Alpha?
Yeah.
Is it Alpha?
I
I've
don't
never
keep
even
up
heard
with
of
the
that.
whole
I think
like.
Gen Alpha is right now.
Yeah, it's like
Gen Z
millennial,
now?
Z, and then alpha.
You're Gen Alpha?
So-
I think my
What are you talking about?
I guess
Still
as long as there's plenty of like enthusiasts, kind of like you guys, like me, like people out there. I think it's going to be fine. Like
Yeah.
going forward, it's kind of like passed down. I do hear a lot of space or minimalism and all that kind
All
of
that
leads
stuff
to
goes.
and it comes and goes, and I just think that there's always a natural like appeal to arcades and
For sure. Yeah.
and to pinballs. I think a big thing that makes arcades probably even more of value going is kind of like light bulbs going away, CRT monitors, the
Going
originals
up in
like that.
value
They
now.
come back
they're
and everyone
expensive
wants
now.
them.
Yeah. I mean, they're expensive and they hold a lot of value, and I think they keep a lot of interest because it is kind of like the new old school, thing. I think for the next at least 20 years,
What we've talked about on the show before within our world with video games, and same thing with you guys, is we're lucky enough to be in a generation where YouTube exists, to where there's always going to be channels and people talking about this
Right,
stuff.
right.
So it will always kind of keep a churn of like viewers coming and going, oh, I'm not into that, but that is cool.
Right.
And before you know it, they're into it. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. Have you ever had like dude, I'm so hoping you did help with this, but like movies reach out to you like, hey, can I get a ton of arcades just to film? Like Tron Legacy, that whole pinball thing. I'm like, all I could think of was like, dude, Chris probably did that.
Well, I didn't do that one.
All right.
I've been approached. I've actually sent games out to sets. I've had some different companies that have approached me about possible site, like doing something on site, whatever, as far as movies or TV. But I have done some work with television and with movies as far as providing props,
Renting out props.
renting out games. Having them shoot is another thing. I've done a lot of shooting as far as we've done some indie episodes, and
Sweet.
I do my YouTube channel. We stream all the auctions and stuff there. But yeah, I'd love to see a movie shoot there even, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
That'd be sick.
whether it's the pinball room or even in the warehouse, just rows of games set up. It's kind of cool. But, I don't want them to shoot them or blow them up or anything. You know what I mean?
What do you think the most popular arcade game, like for Nintendo, it's like Mario Duck Hunt. Like that's probably the most popularized video game in the cartridge world of Nintendo. With arcades, is it like a Pac-Man cab? Is this like the most everyone played Pac-Man?
Ooh. Yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody did play Pac-Man. That's probably a top one. I think probably one that a lot of people would talk about, and I think everybody that had a chance to play it, but to almost feel the gravity of it, you'd have had to be there, I remember when Dragon's Lair, okay?
Just
Big
playing
one.
it the other night.
Right. When Dragon's Lair came out, we're used to like 8-bit
Enzo, we
and
played it.
early arcades, right? And you're playing like I mean, there are some great games. Berserk. Have you ever played Berserk?
Robotron. Robotron.
Robotron,
Awesome.
yeah.
Robotron's awesome. It's just two handles and you're just constantly going, which follows into Smash TV. You know, it's like all these cool like action games. But in the 80s then, you had those games, Joust, different Williams games were really cool, Asteroids and all that. And then all of a sudden, you've got this interactive cartoon.
Yep.
It was like the first game where you were actually like watching a cartoon and you're participating
That's
in
really
it.
what it felt like.
What year was it? Like 83,
I
84?
think it was 83.
Which is
I
so
think so.
early.
Look it
Like
up.
that's like vector graphics. And we
So
were literally
that's
just
where
playing
I'm like
it.
kind of putting myself back to there, like when I just remembered going, I mean, it was like, what? Because it's hard to like, it's kind of like, what would you describe?
83.
In 83, right? So you put yourself in that spot because it's kind of hard because you've seen and been exposed to like all this tech and everything, right? Since then, and then when you first saw Dragon's Lair, it was like, all right, this is cool. But when you don't know nothing, it was kind of like when I first got a cell phone.
I
It's kind of like,
know nothing.
you know what the first cell phone was, man? It was like a
flip
backpack.
phone.
It looked like a sat phone.
No,
I thought it was like a
Talking about the
I'm
car
talking
phones.
about
that
a
sat
backpack.
phone, man.
Yeah, it was like a sat phone.
I mean,
yeah.
I compared. I think we've compared that story many times. Like I grew up with my dad playing Atari, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is cool, Dad." And then when I got my Nintendo underneath the Christmas tree, and all of a sudden was playing Mario, it was like mind blowing to go from Atari to Mario.
So how about earlier than that? Back to your guys' cartridges and stuff. Was we had our black and white TV, and then we bought Intellivision.
Oh, yeah.
And got the Intellivision with the Scotch tape, and we put the vellum up on the TV, right, and played the games on there, and that was like amazing. When did it? Yeah, like I was like, I'm never leaving home. This is like this is the most amazing stuff
First
ever.
game ever was technically, wasn't it two like submarine guys doing like sonar waves back and forth to each other?
It was. Well, I think the first game really was Pong, right?
Yeah, and that's basically Pong. But I think
Basically,
it was their way
most
of playing.
most games were basically like Pong in the beginning. They just
So
were-
many
different
Pong.
skins.
follow a white dot with a skin. You just put a different skin on it, and the white dot's going to go somewhere else.
And people were blown away by that.
Oh, well, I mean, there was nothing to compare it to.
Nothing.
You weren't coming from something
Yeah.
to this. It was like this was like the newest thing.
1958 was when they started doing that.
58.
I think Bear, B-A-E-R, what's his name? His first name, Bear. He's the founder of video games. Rob Bear. I think he
Ralph
died.
Bear?
Ralph Bear.
Ralph
Ralph
Bear?
Bear.
Was it Ralph Bear?
Ralph Bear.
Yogi
So was he into psyops or what?
Yogi Bear. Guys,
I believe like games and stuff were built under like kind of like psyop pretenses.
what's that, Polybius? Is that the one with the myth?
Yeah, Plebius. I've sold a couple of those too.
Really?
Yeah.
They
yeah.
say that they were being used to like mess and
Like,
gather
brain
you
control
know,
people?
yeah, because I had first heard about that when they brought the first one in, and they were like, "Just be careful with it." Be careful with it.
Was it supposed to be Germany that was doing it, or Russia?
I don't know. No, it was us,
Look it
man.
up, Curtis.
What?
Oh my God,
What?
I want to see this.
Plebius.
Maybe,
yeah.
maybe it,
Poly.
maybe it worked, and then all Russia has to do is like finally click the button.
There it is.
There it is.
We're
Plebius.
all under mind control.
Game. There you go. Polybius. There it is. Urban legend. Okay, what's the urban legend officially? The game
Fictitious
was used
one.
as part of a government-run crowdsourced psychology experiment
Yes.
based in Portland, Oregon.
Correct.
The gameplay supposedly produced intense psychoactive and addictive effects in the player. These few publicly staged arcade machines were said to have been visited periodically by men in black.
Dang, Will Smith
That's
was
right.
there.
Will Smith was there. He slapped the machine to the purpose of data mining machines.
And it says the game was popular to the point of addiction, which is what they wanted.
Have you ever sold one of those?
Yeah, I've sold 2 of them.
How much do they go
I
for?
want to try it now.
Yeah.
They were pretty cheap, actually. I don't think anybody really wanted it because they didn't, really want the urban legend.
You know what you should have done to build up the hype? You should have hired 2 guys dressed in black to just walk around by it, and they'll be like, "Oh, I saw it, guys."
I could barely do it because I was playing it when I was selling it.
Got it.
And I really didn't want to sell it.
Look at this.
I was addicted to it.
Look at the side effects of gaming right here.
What does it say?
It says players supposedly suffered from a series of unpleasant side effects, including seizures, amnesias, insomnia, night terrors, and hallucinations.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dear Lord,
Night
it sounds like
terror.
one of those commercials when it
I
you
get that
take a
from
pill.
watching the news, bro.
Like you get side effects: stroke, cancer, diarrhea. It's all those.
Yeah, but I felt all those things when I was doing the auctions before I had like this fixed spot.
Yeah.
And the first one of those that I sold, I used to be on like a 3-step ladder, and at the auction there'd be like 150, 200 people at the auction, like my auction in the building there. They'd be they've just filled the aisles for these games. It's because I was giving free tacos.
I came when you used to give free tacos.
Yeah.
You still do that?
But I sold that Plebeius game, and I was like, really selling on the fact of, be careful with this game, all that. And I'd be like, I don't know, you guys. I'm kind of feeling, like weird. and it had a weird attract sound to it. The attract modes on it are really like trippy. So
I feel like the lore would draw people to want to buy it.
I kind of want one now.
well, it does, but at the same
Sounds kinda
time, I
awesome.
mean, every movie that you see where the people tempt fate and they take that thing home and then they're chased around the house by a little miniature
into
tiki doll
Gizmo.
with a steak knife.
Yeah.
It's like it turns into something.
Perfect
that
idea
calls
for a
you.
movie right there.
Just like you see the Twilight Zone episode where
Which one?
Let's see. Oh,
Talking Tina?
no. I forgot the guy's name, but it was a slot machine that was coming after him.
Oh,
it was
I think I know
about
what you're
it was
talking
about
about.
slot machine. It was
look that
about
up.
gambling addiction.
Oh, dang.
The Twilight Zone, yeah, they get into it with a
I
lot of
love
stuff.
the Twilight Zone, by the way.
What was his name? It was it kept calling him like Harold.
Is it an arcade or pinball?
No, it was
Slot
it was
machine.
a slot
Slot
machine.
The pinball is actually a game, and it's
There it is, Franklin. I think the Fever. Yeah. I think it was the Fever. Franklin Gibbs. Yep, they're staying in a Las Vegas hotel. So it was kind of like
Put it in the background on YouTube. Just look it in the background, bro. It's nice to look at.
Franklin. But yeah, it was Plebeius was kind of like that. Just it had that kind of like droning audio.
What was the gameplay like?
Gameplay was it was like a maze and kind of like a maze. What do you call it?
There it is. Look at that. Just
Yeah,
typical.
Franklin.
Just
Well, they're at the
sweating.
dunes.
Just
Yeah.
sweat. I must win. I must win.
See, and then the thing is, he's playing, but then
That's Ricky at the swap.
like
meet.
his last coin.
Debating.
Got to go to the ATM again.
I'm gonna have Blake.
Then he's
watch
like,
this.
I am
He's been going to
totally
Vegas
not.
a lot.
I'm totally not into this wedding. I totally am. All I'm thinking about is a slot machine. And now he tells his wife, no, you can't.
Wow.
And then he's thinking, Franklin's like, what up? You're going to spend your last dollar on that?
Commentary with Chris.
I don't want to get copyrighted, so that's why I have it.
See, you can't play this.
One of my favorite pinball machines is Twilight Zone.
Oh, yeah.
That's
It's
one
an
of my
expensive one.
It is a great pinball. I actually have one. See, there's Franklin. He's like, see, I'm that way, man. It's like, oh, boy.
Look at the sweat.
He's
It says so
sweating.
much.
But they just showed a scene with him. He's laying there in bed, and there's a stack of coins on the nightstand next to him, and it's just calling him like Franklin.
It's really cool that when a show like this, even without sound, they're doing.
Here it comes.
Man, it's a lot.
Could you really?
There was something on the bottom of the wheel. I was like, yes.
It's like total addiction. That's what the whole underlying.
But
thing
even with
is.
no sound, you totally get a clear picture of what is happening in the episode. It's
100%.
really cool, man.
Twilight is so timeless too. It feels.
I feel like the
Twilight
best
Zone is
ending
unreal.
to this would be he keeps losing, then he dies, and then somebody comes and one pull hits it.
Well, I think
Torture.
Torture. I know.
now they're all like, "Sir,
They're like, stop it. You have
that's a
problem."
roll-a-top slot machine too." And I had a guy who offered me one to put in this sale. I think I'm going to have it for next month. Is one of those roll-a-tops.
Ooh.
They're actually very cool. like mechanical slot machines.
Have you ever sold from the movie Big the Zoltar? Zoltar.
Yeah. The fortune tellers. I have sold some fortune tellers in the
cool.
auction. They are really, really cool.
I think there's one on the Huntington Beach Pier. I think there is a Zoltar. Yeah, there's a Zoltar out
Ben
there.
goes there every night to get his fortune read.
Let's go.
The great part about having it at the auction is I open up the door. If I don't like the fortune I get, I look in the stack and I'm going to find one that I really like. But there's a couple of different types of like the Zoltars, and the one from Big, love
pull
to
it up,
have
Chris.
that one.
Type in a Big Zoltar in YouTube. It's pretty cool. That used to creep me out. That was a very dark scene for me as a kid. I remember always thinking, "Ooh, this gave me the full heebie-jeebies."
I forget. Does he get a bad fortune or good fortune?
His fortune, he basically gets to become.
Yeah, he gets to be
that's what
grown up.
causes
Yeah,
it
he's
all.
big.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot
Yeah.
about that.
Look at what Curtis is typing right now.
Big Zoltar.
Down the not
There
the
he
wicked
is.
one. There
This
it
one?
is. Yeah.
Oh, dang, they made it
Zoltar.
extra creepy in that movie.
Yeah,
huh?
they did.
I forgot that scene.
Not with premium, bro. Look at that hairdo.
What's up?
Ben, take it off.
No. That was a pharmaceutical commercial, man. Don't laugh at that person. What happened to you? Oh my gosh. So there's Zoltar just hanging out,
Look at-
just like results, sales results. I'm not quite sure the name, but I know that there's one that tracks all the eBay sales for arcade games. So you can see historically, how much something's sold for on the average. And then, of course, for video games, I actually have my own source within my software that gives me data on all the games that I've sold since
Wow.
2010.
There's, I would say, I mean, KLOV, I've used that site before. It's kind of clunky in my opinion. Like what we use for video games is pricecharting.com. And
Okay.
what Ben is asking about, like, I've kind of wanted to bring that up to you, like that data, like there's value in that data. I
Oh,
feel
100%.
Like. Yeah. Like if
So
you
like-
wanted to make
so
a
like-
site out of that.
So like Beckett has a magazine, right, that does like sports cards, so you can do that. There was one that was a coin op trader that did keep that, and I don't know, people that maintain those, they've really got to be up on internet tech to keep it non-clunky. Like KLOV is kind of clunky. The internet pinball, the database for pinball,
Pinside.
Pinside is similar and probably the closest for pinballs because they do give you a price range.
Pretty good.
And it's actually pretty accurate.
Yeah, I like Pinside.
But the internet pinball database is kind of like clunky. It does have info, but no pricing.
Well, I feel like somebody to come up with the price guide like that would have to be somebody like yourself, because in my opinion, your sales are probably the most true. Versus if I'm buying off OfferUp,
Right.
and I went and got
Yeah.
bought a machine off of Ricky for $2,000. Who was ever tracking that first
Right.
off?
And to say it's actually like legitimate. Same with eBay or any of that. You can go
eBay's-
off sold prices, but
They're sky high for some reason too. It seems like a lot of times.
you don't know if that's actually real.
Yeah, and you never know if it's
You-
real.
You really don't. And the fees, some people just for advertising, they'll close out their own auction as a sale, just to keep like a
Even on
value. of it.
OfferUp, you can make a listing.
There's
and
been
go
many
buy it
times
around.
when I've gone to look at like a machine, like, I don't know, something weird, like a Bloodstorm. You know that game, Bloodstorm? I've had one before. Like, if I wanted to get the value of what a Bloodstorm is worth, like, the only way I could probably get that value is to be like, Chris, have you ever sold a Bloodstorm? What's it worth?
And
'Cause
then I go click, 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 and I can actually look it up if I've sold one.
The Simpsons one?
And, I could, well, I don't have it on my phone, but I do have the software that's, 14 years worth of game data that I've sold,
be nice to type in a
which
name.
also
and see
includes
those.
all the games that I sold at the museum in Banning, which was 1,328 games that I sold out of there.
Man, I just thought of a new business name for him. Captain's Charting, dude. Jeez Louise.
Charting. Yeah.
Charting waters.
That's
something.
right.
I mean, like, how does somebody go about, like, just contacting you to get something appraised, like, for an auction?
Phone, email. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Slide
I
in
will.
the DMs.
Yeah. I mean, the DM will. I'll give you like an average. Generally, if somebody does inquire,
Yeah.
like I'll just give them on the cuff, like boom, because I kind of have an idea.
I like it. Fast and loose, dude. That's
Yeah,
good.
it is fast and loose, and it's pretty conservative.
Yeah.
Like I'm conservative. I never like tell you, you know, that game, oh, it's going to sell.
You're gonna get rich.
Right. Because that's the part that, you know, maybe like my auction house, as an auction house myself, I've been around people that will sell you the moon, snake oil salesmen, hype men, right? to get that piece in. And I've had people that would go, okay, I'll hold on to it. And like some people are kind of like, dude, you're crazy. You don't even want to take a whack at it. I said, look, I try to provide like real time pricing. You want to sell, if these are the kind of numbers you're expecting to hear, then I say go to the private market. You know, I try to keep it real, and you know, I'm working in an auction market, and of course when I'm auctioning, I'm hyping and bringing everything to its maximum potential. Yeah. Right. But I'm not in the market to put a price tag on it and say, hey, you know, $20,000-$30,000, you know, and I'm going to be holding it here until I get that.
I was going to ask, you don't have to if you don't want to. You don't have to answer this, but what's the craziest wax you've seen?
He doesn't know what.
Like something you thought was going to go for crazy, and it's just like, you're just like, what happened?
And it got smoked. Nobody cared.
Yeah, that's what we mean by wax. You absolutely got toasted on a deal.
We get waxed, that's why.
Waxed.
Yeah.
We call it ankle grabbing. We call it all types of things. But it's pretty much
like your ass kicked.
Yeah. Like, you're like, dude, I wish I would have bid on this.
I call it like it got strafed.
Okay.
Scorched.
Yeah.
I like strafed.
Toasted.
Strafed is good because it's kind of like you've just been, you know, strafed like somebody did earlier tonight. It's just like.
You talking about Ben's part?
Ben started the podcast late because of Ben's ass gas.
That was straight.
So what you're asking then, okay, to get waxed on like a particular game, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, you say that in real time, like that's the price you get, but like, you know, in your brain, it probably should have went for more.
Oh,
or a lot more.
Like, yeah.
What's your biggest, like, should have been worth this much, but it sold way down?
And you're just
here.
like
the right buyer wasn't there.
You felt bad for the dude almost.
You know, to try and find one that I don't.
You don't have to.
You know what? I probably don't, like, without looking or thinking about it for a little while. I don't think I've had too many real letdowns other than personal letdowns. Like, I don't have many sellers that have been, like, disappointed. Sure, they probably wish they could have gotten, you know, let's just say their Twilight Zone should have gone for $9,500, right? And it sold for like $75. Okay. We tried to work it. This is where the market's at, which sometimes it is because it's based on quality, condition, and the standards of people being there, right?
Yep.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed, like, on the whole, like, when I see some things that, gosh, I do it every month. If you just watch any of the videos, I'm sitting there going, come on. Like,
you do.
This is $18,000, guys.
Yeah.
Brand new is $18,000 3 years ago.
Yeah.
18 grand.
I
can't get more than two. Like, come on.
So you'll tell them.
I was
I
was just complimenting you the other day because I was saying you're a great auctioneer. All auctioneers have a different style. Yeah. But Chris has a style where you're auctioneering, and if the price is not going up any higher, you almost like, you don't say, all right, I'm pausing the auction, let me wait for everybody to bid. You'll pause and then tell a story about the item or like why it's so great.
And it's like,
and it gives people time to hop in.
And I let them think, and then, you know, like, I will get on people like, come on, guys. And then sometimes it's like, and I'll be like, you know, come on. And then all of a sudden, bang, 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 these bids start coming in, right? And I'll be like, all right, now we're talking. And I remember when, you know, gosh, I was just playing this game, you know, and then I'll relate a story or something. And I'll be like, you know, it was like when I got to this level, and then it was like left, right, blah, 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 whatever. And then somebody thinks, oh, yeah, I remember that. And then they start bidding. And then they'll bring it back up, and I'll be like, okay, we're not quite there. But, you know, this is where the market's at right now, guys. Yeah. So, you know, anybody else.
Just go with the story of, like, this was my grandma's dying wish was for this game to sell more as she died.
You're terrible.
Well, yeah, and, you know, and see, and, you know, and that may be that's pretty cool for like Whatnot and these different, you know, untraceable, like, you know, Facebook. But, you know, I like to also be known to be kind of a straight shooter.
Yep,
and
honest, yeah.
You know, I do the best that I possibly can, because I do know that with arcade auctions, historically going back before I started mine, auctions were really had bad reputations. I'd been to some too. I mean, they had bad reps as far as like they call shill bidding, you know, and people that would just like, you know, they call it shill, or, you know, to truly shill is to have somebody raising your values or whatever. I think that, you know, with items, if you wanted to do a buyback on an item, there is a way to do that. You can, you know, you don't like the price, you can buy it back. You can just bid on it, buy it back, and then you pay a fee, and then you take your item home. Some people call that shill, but I don't necessarily call that. I think that if somebody is there and they have somebody else and they start playing against each other to raise the value to bring somebody else in, this is shill bidding, right?
Yeah.
And I don't go for any of that, or colluding, any of that stuff that used to happen a lot. And I think a lot of that was because it was before the internet, which, you know, I mean, before the internet, pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was never a term called streaming. You know, you weren't live streaming. I was doing auctions with audio only, and it was spotty at best. So it was basically still like an on-site thing, where I just saw a lot of crap. And I think when I started doing my auctions, it was at my place. So number one, I ran a tight ship, right? Like a captain. You know, you go to my place, you knew that you were in my grounds. You weren't at the fairgrounds. You weren't in a rental hall. You weren't in a place that, you know, was just going to be, I can do whatever I want.
You're in a ship.
Right. Like you come into my place, you start tinkering with things. That means you're in my building messing with items that belong to me, because when you consign with me, I do have partial responsibility and ownership in it. So took me a while to shed all that bad, you know, the stigma that went with arcade auctions, the stigma that went with, you know, you're going to get jacked, you're going to get junk, you're going to get something that the wires are tied together, it's auction ready, you know, all that stuff. And I had to shed all that and, you know, basically create what I have now, which is like this, you can almost say a consumer style business. Like a lot of people come there, you know, you're going to get stuff with nicks and bumps and bruises, but for the most part, you're going to get pretty decent game, or you're going to buy a project, because I'm going to tell you, this is a project. You know, the monitor is broken, whatever it is.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You've been in the arcade business a long time. When you talk about like there was a stigma and there was shady dealings and stuff, like how involved was like the mafia in like the arcade?
Yeah, do you remember
world?
Chris being there at all?
No, I'm not Italian. From my experience,
Is this a real question?
no, it really is. No, it really is.
Like, is this a real question?
No, it really is.
Is this an FDR case or a
This is a real
JFK
question.
case?
From my experience on the East Coast, and I'm not going to mention any names or anything, it seems like there was a lot of Italians involved in the arcade business, and a lot of the arcades were manufactured in Chicago area, which was obviously heavily mob, you know, with Capone and all that stuff. And I just, every time, this is an East Coast thing where there's a lot of Italians out there. Every arcade guy that I've dealt with, there was like a bigger arcade house. A lot of them were old school Italian guys. And I don't know if it was because it was a cash business or they were laundering money. So I'm just curious if you've experienced any of that. Obviously, we're in California, maybe not as heavy, you know, mafia stuff out here, but
Chris is trying to get us killed.
any experience with that at all? Any opinions?
Well, the experience I've had is there's all kinds of people that are involved in a cash. I mean, it started as a cash business, and, you know, there's plenty of history about who's been doing what or whatever. You know, as far as people's personal business and how they ran their operations and everything, you know, I've met all kinds of interesting people of all nationalities that have been involved in coin op, and I've traveled. I've gone to the East Coast. I've gone to the Southeast. Right, Southeast is also pretty heavy in different coin operated enthusiasts and operators. I've actually gone into places and had to facilitate orders that I needed to fill for people, let's say in a certain kind of cabinet with a monitor. And the people I was dealing with, they were all 80 years old, had ankle bracelets and canes, you know, and they were all cool. Most of them, you know, didn't really talk much, and they had fedoras, and they just kind of sat there and let you get all your stuff out. So I've had some dealings with people of all different. You know, what's cool about game operators is, you know, they all have other outside interests as well, you know, and it's you're going to get a mixed bag with everybody. So I've pretty much.
You can talk trash, dude, on whoever you need to.
I'm
Something you don't want to say.
No,
You already made fun of Australians and Kiwis. Just
No, I'm not talking trash. I'm just talking about people that, you know, probably play outside the lines sometimes.
That was
you
always
know?
the sense I got. Like there felt like there was a lot. I was like, oh, maybe there was some sketchy stuff that used to go on in the 70s and 80s with this
Just
arcade.
arcades
there
filled with
was
smoke.
always sketchy stuff going on. You know, I mean, I know that. It's when you're around a cash business that can be reported or not, it's always going to be some sketchy people, or there's just going to be people that I really enjoy. I you know, I just kind of come from, you know, I grew up all around
An eccentric background, yeah?
Yeah, I'd say
That's
kind
the
of
word.
well, eccentric or eclectic background.
That too. Yeah,
You know,
a lot of
with
ease in that.
A lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of, you know, just
Equestrians.
yeah,
You're so dumb.
you know, entrepreneurs, business people. You know, I've had businesses since I was 16,
Yeah,
I guess.
sweet.
15 and a half, 16 years old. And I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit to a fault. And, you know, it's taken me different places around the world. You know, I started a business when I was 16 that was very successful. I employed a lot of people that were older than me. I had a network, and, you know, I finally got shut down in that. I was stopped.
You're saying you're connected.
So you were like the first crypto business.
Well, no, I actually I started a produce business when I was 16, and that was so, you know, what was that, 65, 80, 81, 1980, 81, and at that time in 1980, 81, there was a new fruit on the market,
Papaya.
The banana.
avocado.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
dang.
my. He was an avocado dealer.
The Mafia owns a lot of the avocado business now.
Well,
Really?
that's all.
Yeah.
Slinging avocados, dude.
seen nothing.
In Mexico, it's all run. The cartels run
Yeah,
all
cartels.
that stuff.
Do they really?
Yes, they do. And when I was 16, I ran my own little business. It wasn't very little anymore. I was like strafing. I was scraping some trees. First, it was like my neighbors and then my mom's friends. They said, "Yeah, that's great. You can take the avocados from the trees," but that wasn't enough. I wanted to expand my business, so I just decided to piggyback onto some commercial growers, and so I blew my business up and built a network of stores and restaurants
awesome.
and different
Sweet.
places.
You are literally the
Dang.
definition of the fish that ate the whale, the book. If you've ever read that, it's about I forget what ethnicity this guy did, but basically he started a banana business, and he was basically selling ripe bananas on a train from Alabama and across the what is it, the Panama or whatever it was, and that's how he built his business. He was just
That's
getting
awesome.
all the ripe bananas, and he built this entire. Pretty much, it was a conglomerate story, but it's what you're basically what you're describing it.
That's what
Entrepreneur
I did.
to
That's
the core.
bananas.
Yeah, that's bananas.
The fish that ate the whale. If you want to read a book, yeah.
I like that, but you know, I mean, all that drive, that was like, it was funny because I had there were people that were like twice my age working for me that were just like,
That's kind of cool, though.
kids, yeah, no, and
Get
I was
back
like,
to work, Grandpa.
it was a lot more. It was a lot more serious than that, and it was like really, it wasn't just a small thing. It was like a big thing. So I learned some business and some things like young.
What did an
That was
avocado?
very, very concise, very precise. They were at like $2.35 a piece.
$2.35
Back
a
then.
piece.
back then in 1981.
Man,
In
this would be a great
81?
title.
Dang.
And
That's like $15.
by the
today.
time I was in the day room and people were giving me a hard time until they found out the kind of numbers I was doing, it was like, oh, okay. So
Dope.
the day room.
Yeah.
So that's where that ended.
The avocado pirate. I like this.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I love it.
but there was a lot at stake. And eventually they told me I had to stop.
No.
And, well, yeah, I didn't really have a choice. So, but I got out of that, but I always kind of held on to that business thing as kind of like,
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want
Yeah.
as long as you're willing to pay the price. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's consequences to all actions. So I don't really say, I tell that story because it's like, that is a part of me. It didn't end well.
Were you basically bullied out of the avocado business? Is that what you're saying?
By the mafia?
By the cartel?
No,
No?
no, I was stopped.
By the Australians?
You were
Stopped by the fedoras.
stopped by,
Yeah.
you don't want to say?
Well, law enforcement had something to do with it.
Law
Oh,
enforcement.
shoot.
So
Dang.
it was there was something.
Huh.
Yeah,
Something-
So there was there was
No.
a city, a county, and they had their own private police, but then there was also the sheriffs. There was just this whole. It was a big thing,
There's more to Captain.
you were
than we know.
and it could, yeah. And I was 16, and I think that's
Wow.
why it stayed somewhat under the radar because I was a minor, and it was probably pretty embarrassing because I had this network going, and it was a major commercial grower, and they were like losing. I don't know what their profits were, how they kept track of all that, but man, it was costing them a lot of money. And when when the smoke cleared, and here's this 16-year-old running this
pretty
operation,
They were like,
awesome.
oh,
they're like,
I mean, that's pretty sick.
they're like, what?
I mean, the fact that you can live to tell the tale is even cooler.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did, and I was glad that I only got what I got, and then I had another shot to not do that again, and but I did quite a bit, and I provided a lot of opportunities and jobs for people. So
Dude.
That's
it was
awesome.
it was cool to get me to some points where I could weather other storms. Let's just say that. So when you have opportunities or trials that you learn and crash from, but you can use them later on as
for
a
sure.
tool to
The
like
best.
keep you up. Because I did stuff in 2000 with this other guy. When I started doing the auctions at that place, I got into Japanese gaming machines. Also, it was part of coin op. And any of you guys been to Japan?
We want to.
Yeah,
I
I've
have
been
not.
wanting
That's our
to.
next
Yeah.
task.
Man,
You're talking like pachinko machines?
yeah. Well, pachinko, and there's patchy slows, which are their slot machines.
Okay.
What are
They're
those
in the same
What are
part.
those cabinets called that are like
Candy caps?
Yeah.
Well, the candy cabs, yeah.
I love candy. I
Tons
need
of
one.
arcade.
too.
The arcades are just, that place is awesome, dude. I mean, it's not, it doesn't cater to like American, like tourists, because everything's in Japanese. Like they don't have like multi-language stuff everywhere. But man, if I ever got kicked out of the United States, I'd want to go there and live.
Okay.
This place is awesome. But I got into the slot machine business, importing into the United States, and it was kind of like starting this budding business again. And we got involved with some people that wore black suits and ties, and they were like the people who ran.
Japanese mafia?
Yeah, ones that ran.
Yakuza.
Yeah.
Dude.
They were fun people, man. They were actually really.
Did they bully
Pretty
you out
cool.
of that business too?
Oh no. They liked what we were doing.
You just see his back fully tatted. What do you mean?
Bringing
yeah, these questions we're asking him. I'm like,
I know.
I'm trying to figure out how. Like he's definitely going around it. Yeah.
I think he's in on these things, guys.
It's mafia, yakuza, and cartel.
Well, I've been in situations, and I don't bring up any of those names, titles, or any of that stuff. I just be aware of what you're in and what's going on around you, and you
Yep.
treat it with either respect you know, or what you just respect it for what it is, and you just keep moving on. And you know, and I did a lot of great business importing all this stuff. And
Yeah.
That's cool.
I was importing slots and pachinkos, and you know, and I had a lot of people working for me too. It was all legit, you know, it was legit business stuff, and we did infomercials, and you know, it was just another part of like coin op that wasn't necessarily a super collector's thing. But if you look, there was a wave like from 2001 to like 2003 or 4, where I don't know how many households we put slot machines into, but through our infomercials, we did like this 27-minute infomercial called Rock Bottom Slots. If you looked it up, I think the videos would be on there.
Dang, pull it up, Curtis.
Rock Bottom.
Are you watching
Slots.
Garfield?
That's the Rock's move.
Curtis is watching Garfield over there.
Rock Bottom Slots. That was produced by the Harrington brothers, which
Yes.
were in Florida.
There it
Rock
is.
Bottom
Rock
Slots.
bottom
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
slots.
Wait, I gotta add, dude. Come on. Ben, don't show the ad.
It's all Ben's ads.
Blue
Yeah,
Cross.
Reliant
Bro,
International.
bro,
right
I'm the
there.
poorest one. Come on.
There's the Japanese slot machines, man. They hired this whole crew. They did this totally professional infomercial.
I love these commercials
dude.
like this.
And it's
so
on late
90s.
at night, you know, and it's just running all night long. You know,
Oh,
buy
yeah.
all these slot. These are all the slot machines.
I
they
remember those
import
commercials
from
at
Japan.
night.
What were they selling for?
I
Probably.
think they were offering these for $399
Nice.
or $599. It was one of the two. I can't remember. But then there was all the upsales that went with it as well.
Of course.
So these
It's all about
skill
the
stop
upsell.
machines, factory keys included. We worked on all those machines, shipped them out of California. I was located in Fullerton. And they would add, this would be all across the country. They'd put it on late at night. And I'd get orders for hundreds of them, like every day, dude. Hundreds.
That's actually sick, though.
Incredible entertainment value. They are cool. And yeah, they're just Japanese slots. And then I did a deal with a minting company here to make tokens, because we'd get X amount of tokens from Japan would come in too. Mel Arthur, yeah, he was the talent. And I made a deal with a company in Northern California. And if you've ever seen like 2 million tokens show up at one
boy.
time,
You can switch it, Ben.
they're in like 55-gallon drums,
Wow.
like solid, right?
Oh my gosh. must
Full
weigh
of
a
like
ton.
brand new tokens. I'm like, bring them on in, Michael. You know, I was like doing these deals like, well, how many do you want? Well, I want them for like 1.2 cents. I like, we're playing with percentage points of pennies, because you're talking like 1 million tokens, 2 million tokens. And we get them in, and it was funny because I got this load of tokens in, and they didn't strap them in right, and they're double stacked, and 2 of the barrels fell.
Ooh.
And they were dented, like just dented in half, and the barrels were still sealed and everything. And I'm like, I want a discount. I know there's bent tokens in here and all that shit, right? And he's all, I will pay you triple on it if you find 1 bent token. And I found, yeah, that was weird. It was something that I found out. It was a total anomaly. These like 55-gallon drums are like, seriously, they had this dent in them. And I'm like, there's no way, not 1 bent token. They just kind of like, when they're packed like that, they're just so solid. They're just kind of like sand or like just fluid. It's trippy, dude.
Wow.
And 1 barrel's like, I don't know, it's 1,000 pounds, or it's just incredible weight of these things. But we went through hundreds of thousands of tokens. That was like the upsell. You'd sell a bag of tokens for like $39.95 for 200 of them or something. It's just like this.
What a weird life you lived.
I know, man. so carnival. Like
I think one thing
Great.
totally carnival. Yeah.
I could see like a
I think-
Scrooge like going through the tokens.
Oh, yeah.
that I think one thing that people don't know is that you run a competitive pinball league.
Yeah, so we do host competitive pinball tournaments and a league. I don't run the league. I'm a part of it. Like I play every season, but competitive pinball is a pretty big deal. There's the IFPA, which is the International Flipper Pinball Association, where they keep world ranking points, right? And you can play in our tournaments. We host them at the showroom, Captain's Showroom. And depending on where you place in the tournament, you play in different styles, but then there's point values. Like if you finish first, there's X amount of points. And there's a whole value system to it. But I got involved in competitive pinball because I'm too old to play softball anymore. And, you know, pinball's fun and I'm pretty competitive.
You
so
good?
I'm not terrible.
I've seen him play. Get out of here. You are good. You're really
You know, I'm
good.
I'm not terrible at it. I can find my way around a machine, and I think I'm ranked.
Here we go.
I'm in like the top. Let's just say I haven't looked lately, but probably top 1,500 in the world,
Okay.
Probably pretty good.
like that.
I am.
There's like 112,000.
I am
registered.
incredibly terrible at.
Are you
pinball.
really?
Yeah, same.
Like
same.
Yeah, I can't do
unbelievably
Why is
bad.
it? Because
I
like,
don't know why.
if you're incredibly terrible at it, all it is hand-eye coordination.
I
on
have
the
that.
flippers and the eyes, and so you're just like challenged.
You have it with video games.
Video games I'm incredibly good at. Like
You are really
Nintendo
good.
Games,
You know
but
what-
when it comes
so-
to
Pinball takes a lot of time. I think it's like a
suck.
skill almost though, because like
suck.
you're really good at it. I'm okay at it, but you've probably played 10,000 hours more than me.
Maybe that's the difference there. So there is the mechanical aspect that you do not have in an arcade game.
True.
There's a mechanical and a physics aspect
Yeah, physics.
that is not in
That's
it
why I'm
because
out.
the physical part, well, the physics part is knowing when to nudge right
Speed.
when the ball's coming right to a certain spot.
See, mine's just slam,
Or-
slam,
or-
slam.
Yeah.
I just goes in the middle every time, and I'm like, dude, I
Speed
need
and
a one hit.
velocity.
Well, that's where a nudge right or a nudge left, depending on, let's say the ball bounces off a slingshot. Do I absorb it by nudging to the right as it comes down so I can see if it's gonna, you know, it's all about influencing the ball.
Yep.
Right.
What about shaking the machine?
Well, shaking it too. I mean, shaking it is kind of like if you're gonna tilt, you're not. If you don't tilt, you're not playing hard enough.
Oh, is it a real
right?
thing?
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
a
a-
real thing.
Dude,
No, you
I
should-
haven't been playing it right then.
Really good
Well,
pinball
I mean,
players.
you don't want to tilt. If you don't care about losing, you tilt. You're probably going to lose because you're not going to get any points.
There's a little bit of room in the machine that gives you the ability
It's
to hit.
it's called nudging.
Yeah,
so you
nudging.
can nudge machines.
I was kidding.
No, it's true.
No, actually, shaking the machine is part of the game. I mean, you shake it violently, you're going to tilt.
Yeah.
But shaking and nudging is influencing, you know, the outcome somewhat.
Yeah.
Like if it's heading towards an outlane drain, that's what the little rubber posts are. Like if you give a shake, you can actually, I've seen pinballs that are going in the outlane. You got the in lane and the outlane, right? So it'll come to the in lane, which comes to a flipper. Your outlane is going to drain. So once it goes out the outlane, it drains, then it gives you your bonus and it goes on to the next ball. I've actually had the ball go to the outlane, hit the rubbers, go past them into the outlane where I've been able to shake and nudge, and I've watched that ball come up and out.
Oh, wow.
It's weird. Like, I mean, I still kind of trip out on that. When I see a ball, it's
Cheater.
like, I call it all the way gone. It's like all the way gone, but with a shake, somehow, I mean, it actually comes out. So
People will think you're cheating when you're shaking the machine. I've played, like, if I'm playing with my son or my wife or something, like, you're cheating shaking the machine. I'm like, no, you're supposed to shake the machine. That's what you're supposed to do.
well,
But
originally,
people think you're
No,
not
I
supposed
never
to
knew
do
that.
that.
well, originally pinball machines before, well, they always called them pinball, but the first pinball machines were actually, well, bagatelles, which is different, but the pinball machines were flipperless. So they were nudge machines. They're either bingo, you plunge the ball up into a series of pins, and then it's about how you nudge it to go either through holes or ramps or whatever, or I should say like lanes.
What was that? What year? Like
That would be the
50s?
70s?
30s and 40s.
Oh, earlier.
Yeah,
30s,
early.
40s.
30s and 40s, and I believe that for the most part, the 50s, there weren't too many machines other than maybe bingos.
oh wow.
And then the 60s, they introduced the mini flippers. So they had these flippers that were like, you know, twice as small. They were half the size of like the regular flippers you'd see on a pinball now. And they even had some that were zipper flippers. So like you'd have a rollover, the ball would roll over like maybe a switch, and your flippers would go and they'd like close up.
Interesting.
So now they're like, you can't drain if you're not flipping. So you can still flip. And then if you flip wrong, it can drain. But the zipper flippers helped you out. So there were like different things that were created to enhance the gameplay. which
It's
was
like a
kinda
bumper
cool.
for bowling. Is kind of that what that was.
Yeah.
What would you say is the current state of pinball? Would you say it's like at a resurgence? Is it at the best it's been in forever? Bad? What is it right now?
I'd say for pinball, there's definitely a resurgence.
Ooh, really?
Oh yeah, yeah. I pinball in the past, and maybe it's pandemic has some play in it. Internet, collectors, accessibility to pinballs has created, a big rise, and then everybody being at home. I know there was a huge surge in pinball at COVID, and after that, I saw there was a big rage for pinballs when I did the Banning Museum. The Museum of Pinball closed down in 2021.
The place was incredible.
And I did an auction for that place. There were 568 pinball machines that I sold there. And I had over 10,000 people registered to bid on games and pinballs.
Was that one of the largest collections you've been able to?
That was the largest collection I've ever sold. And I think it was actually the largest private collection ever to be sold.
Really?
That place was
in one sitting. I did it. It was 6 days over 2 weekends, 2 3-day weekends. I did it with a week in between to kind of get set for the back end. But yeah.
Who ran that?
I did.
No, not the auction, but who owned it? Who ran the museum?
There was a guy named John Weeks.
John Weeks.
He owned the museum. He was still is, he's a collector. He was a collector of games, and he had those properties. He's a real estate guy. He owns properties and different businesses and stuff. Really great guy.
Why did he shut it down?
Well, it was there were many reasons. It was in public. It was on the news and everything. Museum of Pinball was closing to make room for a marijuana growing farm, which is just a property owner making a financial decision to close down something that he had open 3 times a year.
Yep.
I'm sure it was more than just financial decision, but it was just an opportunity at a time when arcades and pinballs were at a top pinnacle in the market. And so he saw right timing to do everything. And then he knew me and knew people that I worked with. So, to have a trusting agent that's not some vulture that's just going to come in and, strafe your inventory and take everything. He could trust me, and, he made the right choice. We made a deal, and he just took his hands off and said, "Go for it, Chris." And God, what a sale we created, and what a worldwide buzz. And I think that auction and some of the sales I did kind of reshaped the pinball market. Also, it reshaped the pricing. A lot of people blame me for the price increases that the manufacturers did because they saw the numbers it was making, so they all kind of pumped up.
There was
He's his own YouTuber influence.
There was a few machines I was interested in because I used to go out there. I'd seen you out there at the Banning Museum. The place was pretty incredible, and there was a few machines I wanted in the auction, but I bowed out because I was like, these are going for crazy prices. So I just stepped aside from that auction.
They were nuts.
Nuts.
There were some part of the thing that skewed like those numbers is there were some crypto giants that were actually bidding on games, and they were just like, they didn't care. I mean, I didn't see them. They were online, but one of the addresses of one of those guys was once I saw the address when we were putting together his work order after the sale, I was like, okay, of course, like Park Avenue West in New York, like
I was going to say something in New York or something
Park,
like that.
I'm like, okay, there's one of the wealthiest people in the world you'll never meet or know. But when those guys are bidding and buying, it's kind of like, I think they're just buying a commodity.
There was some pretty rare machines in that museum.
Very rare, very rare games in pinballs and the arcades. I mean, some of those arcade games were like, I'd love to have like a Manhunter or Shark Attack? Maneater. Maneater is a game.
Oh,
it's one of those fiberglass up like bust of a great white shark. So it's just a great white shark head, and the monitor is in there around the teeth and everything.
Ooh, I've never seen that one. I've never seen one of those.
It's a black and white with a blue ocean blue vellum over the top. So I mean, it's just like just super rare game.
Do you remember how long he had that business there?
I think it was I want to say like 7 years. 8
Oh, I'm
years,
so
maybe?
glad I got to go out there then, because I remember moving out here like 7, 8 years ago and being like, "What is this place?" And I got to go out there. Like you said, he was only open like 3 times
Yeah, it was like
a year.
3 times a year.
So anytime they were open, I would be like, "Oh, I'm going to go check it out." So I luckily got to go quite a few times. I have some great pictures with my son there when he was like, young kid playing games. So
Well,
it was
one
really
whole
incredible.
building. It was trippy because it was like one whole building, but one half of it was all pinballs. And then you'd walk through the hallway, go to the other side, and it was all arcades.
Yep.
The rarest arcades and just lines of like all the Bally's are like this and all the Nintendos are down this line and just like, I mean, it was just badass.
And
So
like
cool.
some of the most well-maintained machines, because I don't even remember ever seeing hardly any of them down. Like everything worked.
Well, they did. They had a collective of volunteers that would go there. Like they'd have these pilgrimages, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a year in between, and they just spend the weekend there. And these guys would all red shirt and they work on games. They had banks. They had, I saw the like the tech rooms and everything when we were busting everything down and getting all the rolling boxes of all the parts, like bulk of like switches and buttons, and they just keep everything like rolling.
Do you know how to work on those arcades as
A
well?
little bit. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm a little better, I think, with pinballs than with the arcades. But I got a gal who works for me, Cece.
Cece's great.
Yeah, Cece's great, man. Cece for president. That's what they always say. Everybody always says Cece for president. But she knows her way around the games pretty good. So I do a little bit of work, but I could probably do more. I just don't have the time to do the tech work. So, I bring in probably some of the best techs that are in Southern California. Because there's not very many of them left.
No, it's hard to find. I need a flipper in my Street Fighter 2, and I'm like, I don't even know how to do this. I need somebody to come.
That's an easy.
I know it's easy. I've done it before, but I don't think it worked out.
But to have somebody just come and do it, it's
time.
difficult.
Yeah.
To find somebody to do it, and then you can YouTube the video to do any of that.
I did one, but then it didn't flip well. So I'm like,
Back to your competitive pinball ranking and all that.
Yeah.
How competitive it is in your world? Like, I mean, like, is it like constant games going, or is there constant is it a big scene?
It is. I mean, the competitive pinball, we have league like every other week on Friday nights. There's competitive pinball. CC runs a women's only league, which is the Bells and Chimes, which is almost weekly during their season. Plus we have random monthly tournaments, which will bring in 30, 40, 50 players at least once a month. Plus, because Captains is a distributor for Stern Pinball, we also have the competitive Stern pinball launch parties, which whenever there's a new pinball that comes out, we'll have a launch party that will attract 40 to 50 people to come and play competitively. So I'd say there's competition going on generally every week there. And then you've got people that are coming in regularly just to practice on a lot of the games. So, yeah.
if somebody like a novice wanted to get into that, whether it's through where you run them or anywhere in the country, like what's the best way to like join a league or get into like competitive pinball?
Well, first, I mean, find a site that actually has somebody there that's kind of running the pinballs or whatever, and then ask them about league membership. And, generally everybody welcomes anybody who wants to play competitively and will kind of help. It's like there's different kind of tournaments, some where you can coach, and sometimes there's just freebie fun tournaments, like people put stuff together where it's just casual play and you can learn how to play and all that. And competitive pinball is pretty inclusive for anybody who wants to come along. And if you really don't know how to play, I mean, you're probably going to lose, I mean, you're playing head to head with some people or in a group of 4, but for the most part, people are pretty nice about if you ask them anything, like about
teach
the
them
games.
along the way.
Yeah. I mean,
stuff. Yeah, that's cool.
I'm like that. If the rules allow you to talk to people while the game's playing, not while they're playing, but if you are both here and you go, yeah, hey, I saw, whatever. I'm always good with sharing information. So
Yeah.
try to make it comfortable, because at the end of the day, in my business, since we do so many tournaments, I want to try to have a friendly atmosphere and bring more people in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of my favorite casuals was pin golf. I think I played it for the first time at the Banning Museum.
Oh, yeah,
they were
yeah.
running it out there.
Yeah.
Pin golf is basically like there's 10 games lined up and you have to shoot. Help me out with it, Chris. Like, you want the
You
higher
get
score.
objectives. The
Objectives.
different games have different, like, say Demolition Man, you have to get to 10 million, but stop at whatever, 10.5. So it's kind of like you play it and you got to, play to the objective. And some games are just like reach multi-ball within 2 balls or something like that.
What?
And you want the lowest score like golf.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's like the more you adhere to that, the less points you get. So you're keeping your
score
below
down.
par. Right?
Oh, yeah,
you want
that's
to be
cool.
below par.
Yeah, you want to be
Super
below
fun.
par.
I
So
really
it is cool. It's like golfing. So you
Yeah,
got
yeah.
objectives to make, and you don't want to go over, or you want to go under, or you just want to try to reach the objective. It's kind of cool. But then you got like group match play. You play Flipper Frenzy, which is a tournament style that I liked, that I think they got rid of it, whatever. There's a different hybrid, but Flipper Frenzy is like everybody is on a list and you're in a queue on the computer, right? The software handles it. And so it's head to head and you're playing against somebody. And if you win, you're going to go on and play, or no, if you lose, you play your second game. If you win that game, you go back into the queue at the bottom, and it's just head to head with all these different machines, and you play as many games as you can in a 2.5 hour period.
It sounds like the
that's
Nintendo World
awesome.
Championship,
Yeah.
like for pinballs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
People going at it the whole
Well,
time?
no. It'll be like 40 people, right?
Oh, so you get
Say you
matched
have
up.
10 machines in there. So, or let's say we got 20 machines. So 20 machines with 2 people on each, that's 40 people. And then your other people are in the queue, right? And then every time you play 2 games, win or lose, I think it is, you play 2 games, and after your second game, you go into the queue.
Gotcha.
Okay. So then you're in the queue and you're going back up as these other people are rotating in. And what you do is you obviously play to win as many games as you can, because at the end of the time limit, then they go by win-loss ratio of who makes the finals. So then you'll go
Oh,
into
that's
like,
cool.
that's the qualifying part.
Yeah.
So you do Flipper Frenzy for 2.5 hours, and then there will be like 4 rounds of match play for the top 16, and then everybody else is out.
Dang.
But then we'll do like a B bracket for
The
you know,
losers.
the next 8. The next 8 will play in a B bracket. But you have to figure they're going to play so you can just play more pinball. You don't move your position because you're getting your world ranking points. So you freeze in that position. Unless you make the finals, and then the final 16 or whatever, they move on. And the 16 seed right there, if he actually progresses, you can end up winning the tournament, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you win the tournament, you get the top points.
It's pretty dope.
Top points can be like, in a tournament like that, it could be like 45, 50 points. We have a tournament coming up the first weekend of December, Pins and Pirates, the 6th annual Pins and Pirates Pinball Rally. It's 4 days of tournaments, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, finals on Sunday. There's going to be match play 90s games. There's going to be a classics tournament, a women's tournament, and then a main division tournament with 12 machines in it. The term is pump and dump. So you buy X amount of plays for X amount of money,
Yeah.
and you play those games, and you're playing the best 7 games out of 12 on your own. So you're playing singles games, and you can buy as many entries as you want to try and get your best 7 scores to total to get you into the
next-
finals,
yep.
right? And last year I won the classics tournament out of like 54 players. I went to qualified, and I was probably middle of the road, and then it came down to finals.
This
and
is
I-
auction house
and I
juiced
won.
over here,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Its own event. Yeah, right.
Can
That's
anybody-
awesome, though.
Can anybody enter into that one?
Anybody can enter.
See, I might want to do that. That's
See,
December 1st.
That's December. What's the dates? That's
Anybody else in? Bento?
Well, now that
I will get
I'll tell you
absolutely
what.
destroyed, bro.
now that I can move
you
the
I think-
machine.
destroyed,
So
Curtis.
it's,
You want to come and play? Let's go. I want to.
So
Are you good? We should do
and,
it.
And the thing is, what I really like about it, it starts December 5th.
December
so
5th.
6th, and 7th, and 8th is finals. But what I like about this format of tournament is you play a ton of pinball, but you're playing by yourself on a game, like one game at a time on your phone. You get into a queue. You're like, oh, I want to play Guardians of the Galaxy. So you get in that queue. Your name is up. So you go up. You play your game. The game's on free play, so you're just going to push the start button because you've already paid and got your entries, right? It's pretty organized. It's nice. So you play your game, and then you have a scorekeeper, registers your score. If you like your score, you can keep it. You can see where you're at
Yeah.
on the list, on the rankings, right? And now you got to go work on another game because you need your best 7 out of 12 machines to choose from. That's just one tournament. Then you've got a classics tournament where it's basically the same thing, but I think it's 6 out of 10. And then there's the 90s tournament, which has all those Monster Bash, Medieval Madness, all those cool
The
games.
Williams.
My
favorite.
Williams and Bally's.
Yeah, I love them.
And that's another one that I think it's best 6 out of 10 scores. So you get to play a whole bunch of pinball on your own, no pressure from anybody else, and you're just checking to see where you're at in the rankings.
Yeah.
So it's actually a really cool format.
You in, Curtis? You wanna do
No, I'm gonna definitely lose. But I think it'd be a fun video idea. I
You're
think
not
I would
good?
do it. Yeah, I think I would do it. I mean,
I mean,
it
it'd
sounds
just
like a
be
thing to
fun
do.
for the experience.
Yeah, the experience part.
Nobody is really watching you anyway. So it's kind of like there's no real pressure, only your own pressure that you put on yourself, which is the cool part about the qualifying session.
Yeah,
You're not like in a group of 4 players because believe me, it does change. Like when you're in a group, like with 3 other players and you're playing, I try to believe that there's no pressure, but it just seems like there is because, you know, when you have a bad ball, like I'm good, but the thing about pinball is it's leveling, dude. Everybody has bad balls.
I like it because then you get to rap.
everybody just has. You couldn't make it sound any like cool. Or just
Then I get to be
everybody's got
like,
bad balls,
"Dang,
bro.
Bad balls.
Bad balls, bro.
Dang, Curtis, you suck.
Bro, Chris, you have the worst balls.
And it's funny that, you know, and I don't know how arcade competitions are if people talk trash or whatever.
Let's hope, man. Let's hope. We want the hype behind
You
it.
do that?
No, I
Because like
don't.
in pinball, like
Only to Chris.
everybody like respects that. So nobody
You gotta have-
says
I mean-
nothing, dude. It's kind of like
It's
I
quiet.
get your pain.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's
Yeah.
like, you know, and
Yeah, I bet you it's more serious in that aspect for sure.
Well, it's serious, but at the same time, it's kind of like, you know,
You're in the zone.
yeah. And
Yeah.
you like, I see somebody go by like, and their nostrils are flared. Like, I mean, they just had a bad ball. I'm not going to say nothing. You just kind of like,
You're not gonna be like, bro, those balls stink. Like you're not gonna.
no, man. No. So you just kind of like hope that it doesn't happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I think one topic that I wanted to kind of reel back into was like, what is like the worst side of like an auction business for you?
The worst side,
Yeah.
non-paying bidders. And that's
Yeah.
horrible.
That's
You know?
big.
I mean, that's like, I mean, the worst side of it is probably that, you know, doesn't happen very often, but you know, if you ask for a bad side, because, you know, most of it to me is an upside. I like it all. I like the people are always interesting, you know, in auctions, whether they're buying or selling, because I deal with both. You know, the product's great. You know, another bad side, I guess, would be rent. So it's like, you know, money and non-payment. You know, those two go hand in hand. Because if you get non-pays, then maybe you don't have enough for the rent or whatever.
Have you ever had like somebody there be disgruntled and
Oh yeah,
unfavorable?
yeah, that's usually handled pretty quickly, though. I
You gotta
mean,
call out Chris.
You call your cartel.
Calling the Yakuza.
You know, it's
Yakuza comes out.
I have a very dedicated loyalist team. My team
Nice.
is very loyal, and they know how to like kind of remove situations. But you know, at the same time, you know, I've listened to people too that I've had people come up to me during the auction, even if it's streaming or if it's just live. They like come up and start either yelling or talking to me like nobody else is in the room. Like excuse me, you know, like, okay, I understand that, but there's 200 people here. Like, I can address your problem later. Or if you have a problem, I invite you to leave. You know,
When you first started up, like, how did you figure out like how to build your own reputation for it?
that's actually pretty good. You know, when I first picked up a microphone, right? Is that what we're kind of like?
Yeah. I mean, you just ground level.
I was doing, I had auction, let's say 2008, because that's when I moved into Anaheim and officially had my own flagship spot. It was right there, 2008. And I had somebody who was doing auctions for me. They'd come in, sashay in, and she would do the auction, blah, blah, blah. And I'd have a clipboard and I'd write it down. One day, couldn't make it for whatever reason. I know the reasons, but they just couldn't make it. There was a scheduling error the night before an auction. And I tried calling another auctioneer to help me out. Didn't happen. So I automatically picked up a microphone on day one and did like, it was a really important auction. And so I had nobody to do it. So I was going to have to do my own thing. Right. And so I didn't have time to worry. I didn't have time to do anything except say, dude, if you want to make rent, if you want to make, you know, you want to make your auction happen, you just got to do it. And based on some other past stuff that I have too, I'm not afraid of a microphone, picked up the mic and just started my own style. I just started talking.
You're like, get the
I
avocados.
started talking really fast. So, you know,
Are you a fast auctioneer? Your style of tone?
yeah, but not like Chris has heard me. It's kind of like, it's not any kind of cattle rattle. I just have my own, like, I say the numbers really fast and I'll talk, but I say them fast, but everything I say, I'm just conscious and aware that everything I say is articulated. Like you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Because that can be a hard thing. I've been
Very hard.
I mean, we had that happen. Remember?
We were at the yeah, I was telling you about this, Chris, but we were at Arkansas at Retrofest, and there was a cattle.
Cattle
I
rattle.
think he actually sells cattle. I would
Yeah.
guess that auctioneer does, and it was I mean, it was country.
It turns a lot of people off.
I wouldn't
Well-
say it turned me off. I just was confused.
Well,
where
I
I'm
was
at.
I was
That's the thing.
confused.
I did a
Yeah.
few times where I was like, I didn't know I was the high bidder when my low bidder was like all
that's
over the
part
place.
of the magic that a lot of auctioneers will play is they'll pull bids from you and they'll get you, you'll doubt yourself and then you'll buy it. And you really weren't, and they knew it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, there
And-
was, with instance, like with that being in mind was, there was a Carlos, he, had a Mac at Night sign go up.
McDonald's.
Dude, I thought he was saying 250, 200, 250 every time. And then it sold for like $30.
And,
we're
and
like-
even the buyer and the seller was like,
Well, I've seen
did that
that.
close at
I've
$30?
seen
Like nobody knew.
I was like, I would have
seen
been on that.
ghosting and like, 30, 50, 100, 200, 300. And then it'd be like, come on, guys, give me $50. I was like, wait, what just happened? I mean, like really, I'd hear that. And I'm just too into like, I'm on the number where we're at, and occasionally I've accidentally like overspoken or whatever, like the number will come out and I'll be like, you're in, and I'll be like, oh, like I missed it. you
Yeah.
know? And
I never thought about that, like ghosting. I've never heard that term. So as an auctioneer, you could basically
I've
you could
seen
have
it.
somebody in the audience and you could be doing, especially if you're live streaming, being like, oh, 750 online, oh, 800, and you're just making it up online. Like
you can
that's
do that.
ghosting, right? Where you're basically
that would be it. But then at the same time, I have like literally been in an auction, and an auctioneer he'll be going up the ladder. I have 50, I have 100, 200, 300, 400, da 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 da.
and there's
Come
no
on, guys.
bidding.
Who'll give me $100? And I'll be like, what?
There's nobody even bidding.
Yeah, it's like, and there'll be a bunch of people out there, but then it's like, okay, and then you go. And, I've never done that. I'm just like, I'll say it so you know what I'm saying.
That's good.
I'm asking for 100, you know. And then you'll be kind of like this, and I'll be all, no. I have you at 100. You'll know.
You don't do like all the weird sound effects in between and everything?
I learned
Should
by
we have
watching
auction something?
when I had
Yeah.
I can. When
We should
when I
bid.
had
Yeah.
when I had this couple doing my auctions, right? And it was a husband-wife team, and they went on to have a successful, they had a TV show, they've done a lot with auctions. And she was doing my auction one day and she needed to take a break. So her husband took over, and he's a cattle rattle fast, right? And so right when he got the mic and started talking, I looked at everybody and people just started walking away.
Yeah.
Like they were just like what? And I always remembered that. And so when I had to pick up the mic and do it myself, I was like, one thing, I'm going to look at you. I'm going to see you. You know, if I don't see you, holler, I'll find you. But you're going to hear everything that I'm saying.
Do you have a finder person out there like, ah?
Yeah,
like
it's
that?
a ring man. Yeah.
That's what they're called? They're called ring
Yeah,
man?
yeah, like a ring man. Yeah. I got Sean. Sean does it a lot. He's one of my favorite, but I have him back doing power a lot. So, and we don't have a lot of like big crowds anymore.
Mhm.
But I'll have him out there. He'll be, yeah.
Before he does the auction off, I wanted to say, how did you figure out how to build the back end of the online business, through your bidding your own website, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris.
Well, I
Unacceptable.
Get interrupted.
Kennedy
Hey, I try to show that I'm not Gen Alpha, you know?
Yeah, beta.
Sorry, you're Gen old. Okay, get out.
so the question is like the internet, you mean? Like,
Yeah, because do you use a third party software? I mean, you don't have to say specify, or did you build that website yourself? And the
no,
whole
I'm
bidding
not a
process?
coder, man. So, but I do and have found a company that creates a white glove platform for your website. So, in other words, when you go to my website, there's my auction, and when you click on that live auction, you go to register. You're on my website, but you're on my page.
Mhm.
It's like a page. It's a site built within your site. Otherwise,
It works really well. I bought many items from your auction, and with
Yeah.
your streaming, the live streaming, and so when you're watching his auctions, you can be online. Obviously, I like going in person the best, but any auction. But online, you can see you, and then you have one camera on you and one camera on like your crew that's showing the game, whether it's CC or somebody else, and then it works really well. I like it. It's a good good format.
It's cool. I actually, and I just haven't. I don't know why. I always come up with these ideas of how to tune, tweak, and make it better for streaming the night before the auction,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, oh.
It's like
And then
every YouTube
then I
video.
go, I'll just wait till next time. You know, I'll do that because I actually want to get audio out in the warehouse where Cece's at, so she doesn't have to write on her whiteboard and hold it up in front of the camera, which is part of, I guess it's kind of fun that way.
I feel like
play the
that's
guessing game.
I feel like
with
that's kind of fun too.
It is. Like she'll be blah, 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 and I'll have to read her lips because I'm like looking at the screen where they're at and they're out there, and I know the games are just like loud, right? Some I could tell. I'm thinking, like my thought process during an auction, that's another thing that nobody's ever asked. So what do you think about like during the auction when I'm auctioning, blah, 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 blah?
Money.
Is it like that's the thing, is maybe that could be it. But dude, I have so many weird, random, either thoughts, stories, problems, stuff that are just going through my head as I'm like rattling off all these numbers the whole time.
Well, I mean, some of those auctions, you'll go till like 3 a.m.
like
sometimes.
13,
It's
14 hours.
incredible. I'll be like,
Whoa.
I'm checked out on this, and I'll come back. He'll still be auctioning at 3 in the morning.
yeah.
Do you kind of go
Wild.
into like a zone where you're like
Oh, yeah.
checked out? You're just kind of like going on autopilot.
I just, people have said I've been doing it wrong all along, and I'm like, I don't even know what doing wrong is. Like because I watch like different auctions. I'll watch some of them on TV, and these guys like switch out every 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so. And
Yeah.
I don't,
You
man.
go 12 hours?
Growth for me is like taking a 5-minute bathroom break 4 hours in. because I used to like go 12 hours and they'd be like, what's wrong with you? You don't go to the bathroom. You don't take a break.
I'm
you
wearing
don't
a diaper.
stop. I just go. I don't do anything.
He just goes down his pants and be like, well, typical auction day.
No, I don't even do that. And I'm guzzling Red Bull or drinking water, whatever the hell I'm doing. And, I do realize now I know I don't look it, but I'm actually in my senior years now. So
How old are you?
I'm 59. So
Wow,
I'm
you don't
Oh,
look, you look
man.
better than
Yeah,
Curtis,
you
dude.
So true. It's so true. It's like,
I
whatever.
say to end it, we have an auction an item, bro.
I was-
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Could we do, no pressure, but could we auction an item? Would you do it?
I do. Is this for real?
Do you have something that you would
Guys
want to
need to
sell?
That'll
Yeah.
actually sell?
Could we do like
Yeah,
one
but
of these?
not
Yeah,
not
like
a collection piece. Chris, he grabs the
No,
collection.
I can grab something.
Like even one of these games or something?
Sure.
Like, could you pick something you
Sure.
want to sell? And we'll.
But it has to stay in the group. So as long as it goes
Yeah.
to one of you guys, because this was
Yeah.
from a fan. Okay. All right. Chris, what's your favorite horror movie of these four?
Get the Freddy one. That's the one I want.
Oh, all right, do the Freddy.
Yeah, we already played this one, so I'm good with it.
Well, you guys bid?
He just passed away.
You'll bid?
Oh,
Oh, that's right. Candyman just passed away.
Candyman.
Oh,
Maybe
Chris
we-
wants Candyman now.
Yeah, but we haven't played that one yet.
No, I kind of like the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I
All right,
know.
so what this is, this in the 90s, a guy made these in his bedroom and didn't know how to make games. Then years later, current time, he figured out how to make things and he made his childhood games.
Oh, wow.
And these are the actual prototypes for them. You can buy the cheap ones on eBay for like $30. They're not, but these are his prototypes from his.
Wow.
They're really well made.
So what's the value on this thing right here? I mean,
We'll find out right now. I would go up in like $5-10 increments.
Oh, okay. So it's just kind of that's kind of like what I try
probably-
to base that on is like
Probably like $5. So just start at 50 cents.
no, I mean like historically, if you have one of these prototypes are usually in any
Keep going.
I would say in any genre, whether it's games or anything, prototypes always seem to have that extra value add to it, right?
Yeah, they came from the creator. These aren't the eBay copies.
right. So if it's not a copy and it is an original,
It could be thousands.
Those aren't on eBay.
yeah, but prototypes mean there are very few, right? Yeah, like how many of
Like a select were ever given to anybody.
Even with a note from him.
What does the note say?
I
says
love-
Chris has
it
a small
says,
wiener.
I love
So dumb.
It works though.
So good though.
I know.
Aaron, I was 15-year-old kid
Okay, Chris.
when I first created these fan games. Oh, this is cool.
Yeah, it's his own like little personal letter of.
And we did play that game. It is
These
a pretty
games
good
are
game.
not to be sold. They are for promotional use only. You guys are trying to get me to break international treaties and laws here.
If it stays in this room,
Not
that's
to
all
be
that matters.
sold.
Just a
bartered
friend
with,
giving it to a friend.
the friend giving it to a friend
Yeah,
for
we're
a
just-
value dollar amount.
We'll go buy dinners. 1 dinner, 2 dinners, 3 dinners.
Man.
I don't want dinners.
So Aaron was, gonna say this is
I kind of want it.
cool.
I know Ricky want. You want
the
it, Ricky?
son of a
Ricky said he
100
wants
maniac.
it.
Dude, I'm gonna start the bid at like 2,000.
He's in on it. Curtis, you're out.
I'm in.
You're in.
Yeah. You're not,
That's a chill
hey,
bet.
hey, you're not getting this for a good price.
So if Curtis wants it, all right, what are you going to give me for it here? $20? $20
started at
bid,
25.
$20 at 25. 25 here, 30, 30 bid, 30 here, all right, 30 here, 35, 35 bid, 35, 40, 40 bid, 40 here, 45, 45 bid, 45 here, 50, 50 here, 55, 55 bid, 55 here, 60. 60 here, 65. We got a war going here. 60 here, 65, 70, 70, 70. Right here, 70, 75. 70 here, 75, 75, 75. 75 here, 80. 75 here, look at 80 bucks go one time. He says, no, let's go. 75 here, look at 80. $80 one time. Let's go, big man. $80 bid. 80 on the floor here. I got 80, 85. 85 bid, 85 to go one time. Let's hit the century. Let's go, boys. 80, 85, 85, 85 one time. Hold on through 85 here, 90, 90 to go, 90 to go one time, 90 here, 90, 95, 95, 95, 95 here at 100. 100 bucks.
Dang. Hey.
Go one
Less for
time.
what I was at.
One time.
before.
What do you say? What do you want to do? 100 bucks.
Let's do it,
100 to
Chris.
go.
Yeah.
100 here, 105, 105 to go. One time,
105.
big guy, 105, 105, 110. Gotta have it, gotta go. 105, 110.
Hey, this is the auction. Hey, what is it?
110 to go one time.
Yeah.
110.
They say that there's no friends in an auction house,
Look at
baby.
This bad boy
Is
right
there
here.
a buyer premium on this?
No, it's just straight up.
We're gonna
Venmo.
forego the buyer premium, Venmo only.
And a tip, guys.
I need 110 to play. I'll tell you what. I remember Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
The first movie, right? The first movie when it came out, it
So
was at
good.
the Orange Mall. I saw it. Me and my brother went there. Let's just say there was a little bit of something in the drink that I had before I went there. I'll tell you, when Freddie's arms were stretched out
Oh, yeah.
on the alley, dude, that was the freakiest thing I'm
You put his
telling
hand
you.
up.
110. 110
Oh,
one time.
man.
110 for memory.
For the video?
Look at this.
How bad
110.
do you want it, Rick? You want it,
For the
huh?
video?
Obviously.
Well, he's already on. It's on to you now. 110.
them
How
all
bad
for-
do you
Oh,
want?
yeah.
I got 105 here going once.
Kind of want to let
105
you
going
get it, Rick.
twice.
I was already planning on doing
You're
100
gonna
anyway.
let him have it? We don't let people have things around here. You're either conceding or you're not. You need 110. 110 to go.
After the
One
video,
time.
the value's up too.
All done, all through. 110. I got 110. 115. Got 115 to go. 110, 115. 115. I got 110 once. Twice. Third, 115.
Yes, man.
115.
This is
Here
how we got to get Ricky to talk. Put things in front of him.
120.
Ricky loves to buy stuff.
120 to go.
I
One
do love
time.
to buy
Ricky
stuff.
loves it. Ricky's got to have it. Chris with a K, one time.
Are
120.
you going to sell the other ones?
120 to go.
No?
Only prototype in circulation will be this one.
Wow. Need 120. Once, twice. Last call. 115, 120.
Oh, we're suckers again.
He was literally pulling out Venmo.
Keep that Venmo ready. 125 to go. One time. Anybody else will dial through? 120 once. 120 going twice. Last call. 125.
This is awesome.
All done, all through. This personal note can be yours.
I love it. There's no hard close. I love it.
Dang. Chris.
Sold your way 120.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
100
You got waxed, strafed. That's right, all the way through.
Well, Chris with a C or Captain, you want to tell like where people could find you?
Oh, yeah. You can find me at captainsauctionwarehouse.com. I'm located in Anaheim. Come by anytime and see me.
I'm coming by.
If you need
Yeah, we should go.
Ben's coming by.
We got a Mortal Kombat 2 cabinet to
bring
bring
your
in.
Mortal Kombat cabinet. You guys got to come down for the tournaments. Come to the
Yeah, I
showroom.
wanna go
I think
to
that'd be
that
fun.
Arcade showroom.
Yes.
We got 70 pinball machines that are available to play all the time. They're on coin drop.
We get a video out of that?
You could get a
All
video
right.
out of that.
Sweet.
Yeah, no problem.
And you can get like the whole background about.
Yeah.
If people wanted to consign items, can they just bring them right to you?
If you want to consign, you can bring them right to us.
That's what I've done in
Monday
the
through
past.
Friday.
No
Yeah,
appointment, no nothing. You just
Don't
kind of
need an
show up,
appointment.
drop the machine, and
You can
fill
drop
out
the
some
machine with
paperwork.
us. We'll give you a little bit of paperwork.
Yeah, it's super
Off you
easy.
go. It is really, really easy to consign. Getting paid is easy too.
Yeah.
We got great customer base. I have a customer base. I think we're tipping about 18,000
Wow.
customers.
I believe
and
it.
that's all around, which is actually really good. Devoted customers, new people coming in all the time.
Oh.
So if you're going to consign, you're consigning to the biggest auction house in the world.
Well, with that.
When it comes to arcade games,
And you can
actually, that's actually really cool.
$10.
Anyway, guys, all full audio episodes will be linked in the description. I will also put a link to his channel, Captain, from Captain's Auction. This is Chris, guys. Hope you guys go and meet him. Thank you
And
for
I'm
being
going to
here.
give a far out plug.
Thank you.
You can consign items at the SoCal auction too, where Chris is our auctioneer.
Hey,
Way out.
hey, Chris, how about we lock in some dates?
That's going to be awesome to
Chris,
do.
give me the money.
You're not talking your way out of this.